Hello, Mover.
Hello, Gonky.
Why are you staring at me like that?
It's the AI.
All right. Well, let's hope you don't disappear again.
Okay. I'm fixed. We're back. I'm just super paranoid now about technological issues.
If you leave tonight, Gonky's on his own.
No,
he's going to talk to himself.
No, it's going to be the Mover and Doug show.
Mover and Doug.
Yeah, but I don't exist, so.
You like the Toolman Taylor's neighbor? You know,
that's it.
Just, hey.
Yeah. Hey, we got a show today. I hope.
Do we?
Some actual intel to provide.
Yeah. Well, wait. Mover, how was your week?
Oh, we got to talk about all that stuff first.
I'm just asking. Probably the peoples want to know.
Yeah. Did it ever end?
No. That's why we're a little frazzled right now.
Yeah. If I look tired, because I am. How about you, man? You did a secretary's job. You were the secretary this weekend, answering the phones.
I was the highest paid secretary probably in the United States this weekend. And I didn't do a very good job, to be honest, because I'm not a trained secretary.
You did a great job, Gonky. Don't let him ever tell you. Don't let him ever tell you didn't do a good job, because
it was good. Mover and I had to say we had to say goodbye to a really awesome leader, and they're few and far in between. So it was
the best, the absolute best.
Yeah, bittersweet. I mean, it's still a great place, and he helped us get there, and everybody moves on, but it is what it is. But yeah, overall it's a pretty awesome week/weekend, and here we go into the next one, man.
Dude. Yeah. So anyway, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. The first topic is the HopperJet update from the crash at Naples, and I thought this was just going to be intel on the law enforcement side, because I actually got some stuff that I want to talk about. But then
good intel.
Then the NTSB released their preliminary report, and it's not. So here's what happened. So the NTSB released a report earlier from the crash. The aircraft was going from Ohio State University Airport in Columbus. You know where that is? That's where you were. Your neck of the woods, right?
I mean, yeah, it's Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah. So it's a Bombardier's CL-600 operated by Ace Aviation Services, doing business as HopperJet. They were returning to Florida. They were serviced with 350 gallons of fuel. And I know a lot of the initial speculation talked about was it Prist, whether they had done icing, de-icing, all that stuff in the fuel. But they don't talk about that here. But they do say they used the ADS-B track. It was 6.5 miles north. And I want to watch the dual engine failure thing again, because I'd like to sync up the comms here in a second. So once I finish reading this, we'll go through the comms. But they were 166 knots, and they cleared them to land on runway 23. They turned their base leg, which put them on a 5-mile final. And then they got the flight data recorders, and the flight data recorder said that about a minute and a half later, they got 3 master warnings recorded flagging a problem with oil pressure in the left engine. This was immediately followed by an oil warning from the right engine. Then the system alerted pilots to illumination of a master warning light on the glare shield, a corresponding red message on the crew alerting system page, and a triple chime voice advisory, engine oil. At 3:10, when the aircraft was approximately 1,000 feet MSL and slowed to 122 knots, the crew declared an emergency, notified ATC that it lost both engines. The aircraft was on a shallow intercept angle for final approach. ATC acknowledged the call, clearing the jet to land. Crew replied it was not going to make the runway. It was at an altitude of 900 feet and a ground speed of 115 knots. The ADS-B showed them on I-75 in Naples. It was rush hour. Oh, wow. Rush hour on Friday.
Wow.
A lot of cars. Dash cam submitted to the NTSB shows the final seconds. The left main touchdown, and then in the center of the 3 lanes, then right main touchdown in the right lane. The jet rolled through the breakaway barrier into the grass shoulder area before impacting concrete barrier. I know a lot of people said it had hit a car. It doesn't say that here, but that doesn't mean it didn't. And then obviously they caught a large, it caught fire at that point. Flight crew included the captain, FO, and the cabin attendant. And we didn't talk about the cabin attendant. I didn't even know the cabin attendant, I think, when we first talked about this, but she did an amazing job. She saved those lives.
Yeah.
By far, just amazing.
Yeah.
So basically, she realized the cabin and emergency exits were blocked by fire, so she directed the passengers to the tail section of the airplane, and they evacuated through the baggage compartment door. Cabin attendant, the 2 passengers on board, and a motorist sustained minor injuries. Unfortunately, the pilot and first officer, the captain and first officer, did not survive. They were experienced 10,000 hours of flight time and 2,000 in the accident airplane for the captain. And the FO had 24,618 hours of experience, 138 in the accident airplane.
Wow.
So its most recent continuous airworthiness inspection on the engines was January 5th at 9,763 hours of operation. Or sorry, that's the airplane. It's powered by 2 GE CF34 engines. Most of the aircraft was consumed by fire. It smelled of Jet A fuel, and the ground was soaked with it. I know a lot of people also speculated about running out of fuel.
Right.
The center cockpit center console was found separated from the main wreckage. Both the engine throttle levers were found near the idle stop position, which of course is consistent with you trying to land and stop. Flap selector was found in the position consistent with the 45-degree flap extension. Again, you're normal. Landing, you're configured. You're not going to deconfigure at 900 feet. You're just going to take what you got. Left wing was entirely consumed by post-impact fire. Evidence of right wing had impacted the vertical steel I-beam of a highway sign. The outer portion of the wing had been torn off. Right wing fuel boost pump was located. The left wing fuel boost pump was not. Tail section was largely intact, damaged. They noted the engines were still attached, and approximately 16 ounces of liquid with an odor and appearance consistent with Jet A fuel was drained from the aft tail fuel tank. Sample contained about a ½ ounce of what appeared to be water. That's not a lot. That's not a lot of water.
No.
APU unit fuel filter bowl was removed for visual inspection of the fuel and filter. No debris was noted, and the drain fuel and the filter appeared clean. Fuel was retained for analysis. Engines were also removed for further examination. They did not find any structural anomalies on the right engine, and examination of the left engine, oil filter in good condition, no particles were observed in the pleats. Fuel samples were collected from bury points throughout the system. It was noted the fuel from the fuel filter and heat exchanger displayed a yellowish tint, while the other fuel samples were clear. The odor of the samples was consistent with Jet A. In addition, the main fuel inlet port exhibited a small yellow-colored debris particle. The oil filter appeared in good condition, no particles. So it's interesting, right? you get oil indications is the first thing you get.
Yeah, it didn't say like what kind of oil, right? I mean, if it's like low oil pressure, that's both engines shutting down, right? If it's high temperature, that could be an issue. I guess where I'm going with this, it's extremely, extremely rare for modern airplanes to lose both engines.
Both engines, right? Both. That's why initially everybody thinks, well, it's a fuel problem, right? Because
but the fire on when it landed, the explosion, that's fuel,
right? But so what's the yellowish tint? Like, what are they? Like, they got a little bit of water, but what's the other stuff? Is it what was it? Some issue with icing or some contamination of the fuel?
Some of the people in the chat, and they may be onto something. We're speculating now, but if you remember the British Air 777 that basically the engines didn't flame out. I just don't think they responded, and they ended up crashing it just short of the runway. What the deal there was within the fuel filters, the fuel had like partially frozen or gelled in the filters because of the extreme they were at high altitude for a while.
Yeah.
And some people are speculating maybe it was something along those lines, but I'm with you, Mover. It's very modern jet airplanes with two engines. It's extremely now granted it's happened in the A320 like twice because of the FADEC. I don't like birds, but there's no birds in this one.
Maybe. I mean, they haven't found any, this is preliminary. So at this point, the other thing I think people had speculated was when the captain, he goes to get the flaps, he might've hit the cutoff. Based on maybe, would your first indication for an engine shutdown be an engine oil warning? I don't know about that aircraft. It doesn't sound consistent with that, but that's that's why we wait until they finish their report. But so it's some interesting stuff we found out. And I want to draw attention, and I talked about this last time. I want to draw attention to the Shadow 5. That was the helicopter that happened to be in the area that did some on-scene stuff. And I got an email or a message from one of the pilots that was there that day. And we don't usually, you never really think about the rescue folks that show up and try to help. But I want to play the audio real quick, and then I want to read what he said to me and just kind of give credit to what they did, because they still were right there and doing a good job. So here's the audio one more time. We've played this last time.
Okay, Challenger, Hopperjet 823, lost both engines, emergency. I'm making an emergency landing.
Whoever's got the emergency, clear to land runway 23. Is that Hopperjet 823?
We're clear to land, but we're not going to make the runway. We've lost both engines.
Drop Flight 574 to hold short.
Tower Shadow 5, where's that?
Shadow 5, there are two northwest right over I-75. Hopperjet 823.
Everybody stand by. There's an alert 3 in progress. Everybody stand by.
Tower Shadow 5, rescue helicopter, request to go to the scene.
Shadow 5, proceed direct as requested.
Okay, so that's the part I wanted to talk about. Let's remove this real quick and fix that. I got the audio echoing here.
Did you make it?
Do what?
I can't tell if you're looking at me.
Okay, sorry. So I wanted to read this. So the crew of Shadow 5, the Collier County Sheriff's Office, they were getting ready to do SAR search and rescue hoist training. We had just started, so they were sitting on the pad at Naples with a full crew, sheriff's pilot, sheriff co-pilot, sheriff crew chief, and 2 North Collier Fire Department firefighters, paramedics. So you already have some highly trained people in the area. He said he heard him make the initial call. He had the crew get in and they went to work. 90-second flight to the scene. And you heard that just now where, he's listening They're on the ground, sitting there waiting, and he goes, "Hey, where is he?" You know, because he knew things were going to get bad. Said he immediately recognized it was not going to be a hoist. Quarter-mile debris field with heavy fire, traffic still flowing both directions. Remember, it's rush hour traffic. Around the crash site in the southbound lanes. Landed in the northbound lanes, dropped off the medics to start triage. Our medics were on scene for several minutes by themselves, gathering as much information as possible for the other responding fire departments and EMS. As soon as those guys were out, he took back off with his co-pilot, is handling the scene for law enforcement. So remember, he's flying, and in the other seat, they're actually talking on police radios, like we talked about with Daniel, advising where it was and what needs to happen, such as shutting down on and off ramps, painting the big picture for responding units to prepare for a mass casualty incident, eventually the on-scene ground commander, and secure the scene. Once we gave as much info as possible and other firefighting departments arrived, I landed the helicopter in the southbound lane, south of the crash, far right lane, to leave access for responding units. My thought process was that we normally take crashes that happen off airport property within the county. At this point, was of little value in the air. So I divided myself, my co-pilot, crew chief to check vehicles involved, get names, plates, all the info we could for the report. Eventually, we were told Florida Highway Patrol will handle the report. They were relieved that we had already gathered a majority of the information needed for them. Flight attendant and passengers got out as we were dropping off medics. I assumed they were Good Sam's checking the airplane. We later found out they were the passengers. Talking about working under pressure, 2 pilots did the best they could to minimize the impact on others, but the flight attendant surviving the crash and having the ability to get her packs out of the cargo door with literally seconds left before the fire consumed the fuselage needs to be celebrated 10 to 15 seconds longer, and they wouldn't have made it. Somber day, but as you know, we get paid to do a very specific job helping others. It's easy to get sucked into the moment and vapor lock on certain things, but crew resource management and talking to each other can help break that chain of bad decisions to get the best outcome possible. As far as scene management for the entirety, the agencies down there handled it very well. So when I got that message, you know, it sent chills up, you know, because we talked about this, and you know, it's that whole be ready, because you don't know when the call is going to come. You don't know when it's going to happen, and it's going to be your time to do the work. Now, unfortunately, they weren't able to save the pilots, but they were right there to help the passengers who had luckily gotten out.
Yeah, man. I mean, you just never know, right? That's why in any, you know, in the military or in law enforcement, rescue, or anything like that, you know, that's the whole mantra of, you know, you train like you fight, because you never know. Yeah. It's very rare that, you know, something planned comes along and you're able to execute. It's usually just, you know, a surprise, like it was for you. But you know, if you're trained and ready, it you know, you read through that, it almost sounds like he wasn't surprised. He just knew what to do, right?
Not only was he not surprised, but he had the situational awareness, because, you know, sometimes the risk is always, you're sitting on the ramp, you kind of dropped your pack, you're waiting for everybody to load up, you're not really interested. And he was listening. You know, he was listening on the radio, got the information needed, immediately keyed up when it was appropriate, you know, not jamming up the frequency, but immediately keyed up like, hey, send me and I'm ready. And I'm sure it helped the situation, especially being able to coordinate all the other units, coordinate the shutdown of the interstates, getting on and off ramp shut down. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it that people don't realize logistically. And the fact that, you know, we're only talking about, unfortunate, you know, it's unfortunate we lost 2 lives, but good Lord, rush hour on a Friday could have been so much worse.
I mean, you know, like we, you know, in the fighter world, we'd always brief, like, you know, first person to the scene's the on-scene commander. But, you know, in this case, you know, dealing with rush hour traffic.
Oh yeah.
An airplane, you know, crashing just past the field, but obviously the field, you know, the tower knew what had happened. I mean, there's a lot of really non-standard dynamic stuff going on there, and they really,
yeah.
I mean, kudos, man. That's outstanding.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, moving on from that, we've got one. Actually, we're going to save this one for your later topic. We have some relevant chats. Jason says, left wing hit top of a pickup truck, crushed the cab, but minor injury there. I'm people in Naples and really appreciate your show. So awesome.
Thanks, man.
So they did hit one of the vehicles. I remember that. But I think it sounds like what caused it to actually spin around was hitting like structural stuff from the interstate. So I don't think a truck
Yeah.
would be enough to
Oh,
for
dude,
something that massive.
rush hour. You're trying to land a jet in rush hour traffic. You're gonna hit something.
Yeah.
You know.
Luckily, minor injuries. I mean, that would have been fatal.
Right.
And Justin says the first master caution that appears in a Challenger when engine shut down is oil pressure. So, I mean, maybe
engine just rolling back.
Maybe it goes back to that other theory of the inadvertent shutdown. I don't know. That's what investigators are going to figure out. Obviously, there's enough time to put them back and hope that they spool up, so they wouldn't still be in that position.
Maybe,
you know,
crash. Yeah,
you're right. You don't know. So, okay, moving on from that one. The Su-57, which is a very popular topic, 5th gen, not a chance.
5th gen.
Not the cars, but the Su-57 has been used. Russia uses the newest Su-57 jet to strike targets in Ukraine. And they've talked about that before. Like, this is not a new thing. They've talked about it a few times that Russia's using the new Su-57. But this is the first time where I've seen them talk about a specific date and specific targets. And what they said was they reportedly used their latest Su-57 fighter jets in recent combat operations targeting Ukrainian military positions. And on February 18th, they were escorted by 2 Su-35s. The Su-57 launched a missile strike on Ukrainian targets, utilized advanced KH-69 stealthy cruise missile specifically designed for the Su-57. Operating from occupied territory, the Su-57 entered the Ukrainian airspace and under escort launched a missile. Due to a technical malfunction, the missile missed, crashed into a field. And why? It was developed by Sukhoi. It's Russian 5th gen. It made its maiden flight. So that's a picture of the KH-69. Failed to reach its targets. Previous reports indicate involvement in airstrikes on the February 7th and 8th for the missile itself. So it's deployed on various combat aircraft. Additionally, it's been noted Russia utilized the newest Su-57 missile attack in Russia to make a military propaganda film. This film is expected to showcase evidence of successful. So that last piece is telling, right? The question of why do you need 4th gen fighters to escort your 5th gen fighter into Ukrainian territory? Somebody who had the GoPro out in the backseat for their propaganda film, and then it missed. So they're gonna have to fix it in post.
Yeah, but I mean, think anyone got in trouble for taking that video mover?
No, it's on purpose. They were told.
This joke, inside joke.
Putin directed them to take it, and they're probably going to get their pictures in the whatever the Russian Pentagon is. They'll be on the wall.
Pretty wild, man.
When Putin approves, you end up in the Russian Pentagon.
I don't know, man. Maybe they do. I mean, it's not uncommon to do mixed 4th and 5th gen strikes.
Yeah, into Ukrainian territory, though.
I'm just saying, like operating in the West. I mean, we do it.
Yeah,
I don't know what their tactics are, but
we do. I don't know. I mean, to me, if you're trying to showcase the 5th gen stealth capabilities, you're showcasing it, saying we sent one, you didn't know about it, and it struck its target. We sent 3, you knew about it, and it missed.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Playing devil's advocate, though, you're if you send a couple non-stealth airplanes with your stealth plane, your strike package is not going to be stealthy. I mean, newsflash, right?
Correct. So. That is information that they need to know. I don't want to reveal too many secrets, but that's
a true statement.
Would be true.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. It is kind of weird. You know, the ultimate would be like, hey, you know, last week that thing that blew up. Yeah, you didn't see that coming, did you? And then just not say anything.
Gonky, you actually make a good point. So, we're joking about it's not stealthy, but if you're trying to hide the radar cross section of an aircraft, you put it with a mixed section. So now you're not divulging what it is and what they have. And so you're just using this new missile that's designed to be carried on this thing in kind of a real world operational test. It failed. So I don't know why we would report this on the news, but it's twofold, right? Because you're not giving them, now granted, military intelligence is smarter than that. They can figure out who's who and what's what in that section or division. But that could be the logic, right? You're not trying to advertise how stealthy this thing is by putting it with non-stealthy aircraft. And is a Su-35. I mean,
not stealthy.
Not stealthy, but
it's like
they don't have any two-seaters, do they? Are there any two-seat Su-35s or no?
Dude, I get it mixed up.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's the advanced flanker.
You may or may not have a dude filming because the bottom said it was a propaganda film, right? So obviously you need somebody to film this thing.
Well, the flanker has an autopilot. I mean, you could do it from single seat.
It's dangerous, Gonky. It's dangerous.
Well,
Russians are all about safety.
And, as far as the weapon missing, I mean, even stateside, it's a big deal. So what they shot was a precision weapon, right? So in the US, I know, man, it's a big deal when a precision weapon misses. And that's why, I mean, Mover can back me up on this. Like,
never. I'm not going to back you up on anything, Gonky. You're on your own.
A smart weapon requires all kinds of validation and whatnot that's recorded before you even employ it. Because if it does miss its target, they want to know why, and it's just to make it better. And it happens with Western weapons. I've had a couple not do what they're supposed to do, and you submit all the data, and what you're on the hook for is recording everything you needed to record, and then they hopefully they fix it.
And that's the thing. This is real world operational test.
Right.
That's these theaters, the Houthi conflict, the Israeli conflict. Like everybody, the Americans, the Russians, the Chinese, everybody's getting real world test data, whether they're observing, whether they're acting, or whether they're a third party supplying weapons. There's so much data being gained, including tactics. I mean, look at the proliferation of drones now, and look at the new tactics involving that, and tank warfare, and everything is being. It's like it's a test pilot's dream, an operational test pilot's dream, because they get real world results like you talked about, and oh, by the way, you might have gotten a tactical objective if it had hit a target.
Maybe next time.
No, we don't want next time.
No, we don't want next time. That's right.
Next time.
You're right.
Yeah, we don't want next time, but
it is interesting though. They're using that airplane, and to be honest, I didn't really. I thought of it more as an air to air. I didn't really think they would use.
That's because you watched Top Gun Maverick.
Is it?
So is it like that? Maybe that's like when we sent the Raptors to go do some air to ground stuff just to justify it. We're like, hey, let's put some little bombs on there just to.
I mean, it can, but does that mean it should? I don't know.
Do you think felon pilots are not a pound for air to ground people, and they're like, oh, it missed. Good.
Dude, they're 100%. I guarantee they're 100% like Super
Dog
Eagle
fighters.
guys.
Yeah,
they're Zamboni drivers
equivalent,
like you've never seen.
they did a BFM set after, and they debriefed that longer than the miss.
Correct. Correct, dude.
All right, moving on. Well, let's see. First, before we do that, I gotta make sure we don't have any.
I think we got one.
All right, here we go. Joe says, "Hi guys, Gonky. That was my thought too. Stealth with non-stealth equals not a stealthy package."
Love your patch, man.
Yeah, we love Airwolf. Hey, sorry about my previous comments. I have watched piles of your content. It's really good. I'm not sure what that is.
Thanks, Jeff.
You don't have
Appreciate
to
the support,
apologize.
man.
We're cool. But going back to this one, I mean, that's right. That could be intentional. Like,
yeah, we don't know what their tactics are. I mean, it could have been purely a publicity stunt. It could have been part of their tactics to keep the felon, from getting shot. I don't know.
Well, because it could be a mode 4 or an IFF thing to keep them from shooting themselves down. Because if you believe the Russians, they have a habit of shooting themselves down. Or if you go with the other side, they're getting shot down a lot, like 14 in the last 10 days, kind of a lot. So they're not.
If you're a Russian pilot, you're like, well, going into the country, bad. Coming back home could also be bad.
Yeah. Which one do I want to believe? They're both terrible.
Yeah,
But
I'm at the get well altitude, everybody.
the gear is down. That's the defector profile. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Please don't shoot. But
Oh, dude.
I mean, they don't. So because it's not an air-to-air. Like you're not worried about that in that scenario with a long range weapon, because that's just the air picture is just not like that. I mean,
Right.
not yet. Maybe
Right.
when the Vipers show up and the Mirage 2000s and all that stuff, but that's a little ways away. That's not there yet. So I don't know. It's interesting stuff. But
It
thanks
is
for the
interesting.
comments. And we'll move on to the next topic. Gonky, you wanted to talk about the Finnish Hornets.
This is just
Hornet
my little
things.
advertisement for the Ukraine. So Finland has Hornets, and they operate them. I think the Swiss do too, off of roads. And this is just a really cool video of a Hornet doing a mil-power takeoff on a road. I don't know. You stopped it, but yeah, there he goes. Pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, Mover, you talk about, the F-16 having the big inlet down there sucking in debris. We did that article about the Ukrainians saying we don't want your Australian F-18 junk, and the Hornets, I think, a little more robust airplane when it comes to being able to operate in and out of rough areas, and the Finns do it. And when I worked at Boeing, a plug for Finland, we had this big meeting where all the different countries that bought the legacy Hornet came, and we'd all talk about problems and stuff. And the Finnish guys were over in their table, and the Boeing guys were like, "Oh, we sold them the plane, then we never hear from them."
Yeah, because they don't have any of the problem.
Yeah, they're like, they don't need us. They never call. They're like our best customer. So,
well, do the wings even fold at all? Is that why they're 9G jets?
I think the Swiss jet is the only one with the different one. I could be wrong. It could be the Swiss and the Finn jet, but
because I thought they had the demo. Don't they have a demo?
They do. And I met one of the Finnish demo pilots in Malaysia. He came there, and he was super cool because he'd flown the MiG-21.
That's a change
in Finland. Yeah, exactly. He'd flown all kinds of stuff, and yeah, he told me he did the demo in the MiG-21. It lasted like 6 minutes, and he was out of gas. Crazy, but yeah, the the Finn maintainers and the I can't remember the test pilot's call sign. I can't even remember what he was doing in Malaysia, but I spent like a whole afternoon talking with him. He was super smart, awesome. But yeah, that's my little plug for the Ukraine to really consider the F-18, man. You can take it off from your highways. You don't even need a runway. I don't know. What do you think, Mover?
I think it's too late. They already said no. Where are they going to get Hornets?
Who else is
Boneyard? They get Boneyard jets.
Marines. I'm sure the Marines. Well, I don't know. Yeah, you're right. Whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. M says, "What's the loudest jet you've ever heard?" I think an F4
Prowler.
Oh, really?
100%, dude.
Really?
Yeah, dude. I was underneath GBD number 2 in my stateroom, and when the Prowler would go in attention, I mean, like, you'd have your phone on the table and just fall off. I mean, there's no literally. I don't have feelings, but the roots of my molars were rattling in my head. It was terrible.
Wow.
Let it go. Let it fly, for God's sakes. Yeah, Prowler.
All right, moving on. So I didn't even know they were operating in this area. So an F5 had a mishap at Hill and shut the base down, or shut the runway down, and did an emergency. Nope, this is not the right one. It's this one. So the Hill Air Force Base closed the airfield after a plane makes an emergency landing. This was Thursday afternoon, so last week. Officials report an F5AT jet belonging to a private military contractor, TAC Air, or Tactical Air Support, was headed to the base for training when the incident happened. An F5 belonging to the Tactical Air Support, a private military contractor providing aggressor aircraft for the 388th Fighter Wing training, performed a gear-up landing or belly landing at Hill Air Force Base after an in-flight emergency. Landing was uneventful and the pilot is safe. He was the only occupant on board, and they had to do a runway inspection, but obviously all was good after that. And so one of my viewers sent me a picture. And I don't know where he got it from. I don't know the source. This is the recovery. That's a good looking airplane.
That's a really good looking airplane.
What is an F5 AT?
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. Attack Tiger. I don't know.
So, I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios, right? It could be, any gear problem. Sometimes it's better to land gear up, like that. We did the Viper a while back where he got that award. And, if you get a configuration that is not survivable, especially with one nose gear, one main gear, or just the nose gear or something like that, typically it's better to bring all the gear up, land on the belly, than try to risk it. You don't really want one main because you'll just go off-roading and it's going to be bad. I don't know that that's the case. It could be that the gear wouldn't come down at all. There's whole different scenarios, but typically these types of landings are the most survivable for both the pilot and the jet. And it's a long runway. The only problem with Hill is higher elevation. It's like a couple, like 4,000 feet, 5,000, 4 something.
Yeah. Like you said, you really want to, in a pointy nose, and that's a very pointy nose airplane. You definitely want to keep that thing on the prepared surface if you're landing. And if you don't have like both mains down, if you got the nose and one main, it's going to be super hard. I mean, the 38 was similar, right? And that thing had really poor directional control. Dude, I'd rather belly land it.
I think it's the same setup, right? Where you have to hold the nose wheel steering down. If,
yeah, I think you're right.
It's not on off or anything like that.
Yeah.
But obviously the F5, people always ask what's the difference between F5 and T38. You've got the leading edge root extensions. You've got the leading edge devices, bigger engines, single
radar,
seat,
guns,
radar, missiles.
Right.
You've got attach points for hard points for everything. And I also want to point out, this was a private military contractor. However, I can almost guarantee that this was an experienced former or maybe even current reservist military pilot flying it. So it's not just, hey, Joe Bob, you got your type rating in the F5. Come on down, we'll let you fly. These companies are providing professional adversary air as part of a contract to free up government assets to go do other stuff. Because we're in the continuing resolution. We don't have any money, all that stuff. They provide cheaper, and it is cheaper overall because of, you're not paying retirements and medical and all that stuff. They just say, here's your contract, give us red air on these dates. And typically that's how it works out. So there are pros and cons. We can talk about that in another episode, but I just wanted to point out, 'cause, people ask, why was there an F5, a civilian F5 landing at Hill or providing red air? And that's just how the contracts work. Because that came up when we talked about the Ukraine F-16s that Draken was going to get. They're like, well, why is a civilian company buying it? And that's why.
I don't know I really like that paint job. I'm not usually a lot of, ATAC and all the civilian companies, they look nice, but they don't have, the only problem with that paint job is, right, it stands out. It's Tally 1, right? Definitely the F5.
Well, if I'm a Blue Air guy, I'm happy about that.
Yeah, well, of course. Yeah.
I want it to be bright orange.
What does it say on the backbone?
Tactical air.
Is that what it says? Tactical air? Okay.
Yeah.
Does that have is it resting on a jammer pod or a blivet or something?
No, I think that's a inflatable thing they put in to lift it up to get the straps underneath.
Okay.
Like I don't think it's resting on anything. The flaps maybe a little bit down, but I don't think I think that's like the inflatable thing they stick up under it to get it up so they could get the straps. And then I'm guessing they'll either pick it up and put the gear down or
put it on a truck.
I would think they're going to put the gear down.
Yeah. If it can come down. Yeah.
Is the dude still in it?
No, I thought that too. It's a guy standing. See his legs? I know. I saw that. I was like, is that his helmet?
That's the stuff nightmares are made out of. Can you imagine, dude? You're like, hey, stay in here. We got to get the crane. 4 hours later. Like, I'm popping that canopy.
I'm out.
No chance am I waiting for them to get 2 cranes and a recovery team. No chance.
They'll drop that thing on its back and you'll be dead.
Yeah. I'll pop every, jettison the canopy, get the canopy breaker tool off the window and start jabbing my way out.
I think it has the same one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You never played DCS? Remember DCS? It's the exact same. I'm just saying, if you paid attention. Some related comments. Zippers Forever says Advanced Tiger, aka HUD HOTAS, RWR data link.
Wow.
That'd be fun to fly.
That would be fun to fly.
Gonky's available. T Wolf Jaeger says F5AT looks like TAC Air's homegrown designation for an F5 with upgraded avionics and Erst.
Wow.
I did not see the Erst. Do you see an Erst on there?
Might be via pod,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Erst here in a second, actually, when we talk about the Rafale. But thank you. No, it's always good when they do that. And then, all right, so that's it for the relevant comments for that one. The next topic on our list, Gonky, you wanted to talk about the Boeing refueling drone and whether you would do that. How do you feel about that?
I did it a little bit, so to speak. So Boeing delivers ZMQ. Was it 25 for
testing? And I'll point out we've skipped this topic quite a few times because I originally picked this because Wombat was going to be on, and it had the E2 refueling off of it. So
yeah, which I think is kind of a new capability for the E2 because it's
so
when you can fly for 10 hours, why not fly for 20 if you can refuel?
They're both learning. So we've got two sides learning. We've got the AI learning, and then Wombat's.
He's not here to. He's not. You cannot bully him right now. We're not here to defend himself.
This is not bullying, Gonky. Okay. You should. You know what? You need to learn how to recognize bullying so you can stop bullying people.
All right.
Because this is not bullying.
Let's get back into this deep intel on the Stingray. All right. So. Mooch, I love you. Hey, so they delivered this thing for testing, and honestly, it's a long time coming. I caught the tail end of the S3, and the S3 originally was designed as a anti-submarine platform, and then it just kind of, as that mission, I don't know, kind of went to helos, P3s, whatever. They became the primary tanker, and the S3 was a fantastic tanker. It could actually carry gas to give you, and it wasn't loud and obnoxious. Then they, the Super Hornet came along and is going to replace everything, including the S3, and it was going to be a tanker. And I will tell you that the Super Hornet is by far the worst tanker I've ever tanked off of. Like, I'm not sure I could design a worse tanker. Incredibly loud, and they can't give you much gas. While they're 5 wet, they're burning a ton of fuel because there's so much drag. So they're burning the gas they're supposed to give. They can't give that much. It's not good. So I don't really like the idea of drones coming, but if there's one mission I would give to a drone, it would be tanker, especially around the ship. Because you could just launch this thing instead of a manned Super Hornet to do circles above the ship for the recovery or just organic tanking. You can launch this thing. So Stingray's got 16,000 pounds of fuel. So, I think no problem. It's going to be able to give maybe, depending on how many airplanes are in the launch or the recovery, you're going to be able to give at least 1,500 pounds of gas to probably 4 or 5 airplanes. Whereas the Super Hornet, I used to, by the time I joined on them, it's like, hey man, how much can you give me? We can give you 500 pounds. I'm like, it took me 500 pounds to get here. So I hope, I hope the testing goes well, and I hope they're able to get it out there. I'm still really not convinced on the whole unmanned thing around the carrier because it's such a dynamic environment, but I'm just an operator, and there's people way smarter than me working on these things. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out, but the Navy definitely needs a better carrier tanker.
How much space does it take up on the ship?
Probably not any more than, it's similar size to, an F-18. And, the other thing the article mentioned was, you're saving flight hours. A lot of people maybe don't know it, but the Super Hornets, the pylons are canted out, right? So it's 5 wet, right? So you've got all these pylons out there that are sticking out like this. So, it's tremendous stress on the airframe. So by having an unmanned aerial tanker out there, you're saving flight hours on F-18s that could be used for tactical stuff. And we'll talk about it a little bit later, but the plan is to get Super Hornet, probably beyond 2040. And that ain't going to happen if you burn up all your flight hours. And while I was in, shocker, when the Super Hornet was designed in the 90s, we weren't, blowing holes in the sand. Well, we spent 20 years blowing holes in the sand, which burned up a lot of the flight hours in the Super Hornet. So when the Navy guys were doing their planning and they were doing long range planning, they're like, well, Super Hornet should get us all the way to here to whenever the, F-35, I'm sure, I don't know if they knew the F-35 was coming then or not, but it really compressed the timeline for them based on just burning flight hours. And tanking in a fighter to me is just a horrible idea across the board. Mover.
Tanking from a fighter, you mean? Like
tanking from the fighter and being the tanker.
That's what I'm saying. Being the tanker as a fighter.
Yeah, it's a horrible waste of the fighter, of the pilot. And like I said, as a tanker, it's not very good. It doesn't give much gas, and it's incredibly loud. The burner cans are like right here.
Yeah, it's not something you think about. Yeah.
No, you can't hear anything. You got the radios turned up full blast. Your teeth are rattling. Yeah. It's no bueno.
How much gas did this thing say it would take?
It carries 15 or 16,000 pounds. I don't imagine it burns a whole lot of fuel. They say it has a 500-mile range, but to be honest, if you're the recovery tanker, you're just doing circles over the ship.
What's a normal offload for recovery? You're just taking a couple thousand pounds just to get you to.
Well, it depends on what the tanker can give. Anywhere from 500 to 1,500 pounds is typically what you would get out of.
Yeah, so you're not. I mean, so 15 to 16,000 pounds will actually get you quite a few.
Yeah, with decent give, like you probably get 2,500 pounds, stuff like that. Now, it depends on if you've just taken off and you just want to top off. So like if we were doing like self escort strikes, so I would take off and I would go and I would top off, and if I took 1,500 pounds, that would top me off, no problem. So I had full tanks to go. But if you're coming back from like in my case Afghanistan, Iraq, and you were getting low on gas, you would take what you could get.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Gonky. Guardsmith says, refueling question for Mover. Did you do in-flight refuel with both the USN and Air Force? I did not. No, we never had tankers at 204. Never needed them. Yeah. But so here's an interesting chat from the audience. This was on your channel, Gonky, but it was for us, for me, for thanks, you. DG. Yeah, thanks, DG. But it brings up a good point. So Mover, have you looked at, DG says, Mover, have you looked at bogey dope Air National Guard pilot jobs, i.e. F-15 slots with the 122nd Fighter Squadron, contact, visit, rush, squadron, bell chase, LA contact or machine? And a lot of people don't know that this is how it works in the Guard Reserve. So I wanted to take a moment to actually pull up, and this for sure guarantees there's no chance they're going to hire me now.
Is this Fresno?
No, this is the 122nd Fighter Squadron. They're the wing. Okay. The 122nd Fighter Squadron is in New Orleans.
That's right.
And so this is how hiring works in the Guard Reserve, especially. So you would go to a Mill Recruiter first, millrecruiter.com, and then you would go click on the link. I've already done all this previously, just now. And I wanted to read this. So anybody who's actually interested, if they're interested in applying, because this is both UPT for undergraduate pilot training. So if you're off the street, hint, hint, or if you're rated, like this old guy's over here, you can apply. And so they say they're commonly known as the Bayou Militia, which that changed in the area of political correctness because that's not how it used to be. It's currently searching for potential current fighter pilots to join our rich heritage of Eagle drivers. As an Air National Guard unit located in New Orleans, Louisiana, we offer a multitude of activities outside of flying the world's greatest air superiority fighter, fishing, hunting, boating, NBA, and NFL games. Who dat? New Orleans Saints. Mardi Gras, we just had. Live music, crawfish boils, nightly trips to the French Quarter. I don't know about all that. It's dangerous. Are all just a few of the world-class activities at your disposal here in Southern Louisiana? Well, they got to talk it up, right? You're not going to say, hey, it's Fallujah. You know, you don't want to bring your gun and come on down. You know, nobody's going to say that. But anyway, Gonky, you're not laughing at my joke, so I appreciate that. Thank you. You should expect to work Tuesday to Friday, which is awesome, plus 1 weekend per month for drill, as well as sitting alert periodically throughout the month at the home station here in the Big Easy. During work days, you'll be tasked with flying the F-15C Eagle, pushing it to its limits in the air-to-air realm, which includes dogfighting, conducting tactical intercepts, and defensive offensive counter-air missions. Additionally, you should expect an occasional TDY cross-country and or deployment. Disclaimer, if you are searching for a place that lives to drop 500-pound B words and shoot the gun incessantly at the ground, this is not the spot for you. No pound for air to ground. This sounds like something you cannot live without. Then reach out and contact one of our Eagle Driver POCs, rated applicants, UPT.
I love it.
First of all, I love it because creativity, I mean, it sells, right? Yeah. That sells. As a F-16 pilot, there's some stuff I could say about making fun of that, but I'm not. So for those of you that are in the market, this is what a typical UPT job post will look like. It's not just these guys, they're having their board, but in general. So the hiring window was from September 7th to March 31st. So it's ending here at the end of the month. The POCs are the Po' Boy and Machine. And here's the thing I want to point out. Read this. If you're applying and you are thinking about joining and you're rushing a squadron, attention to detail is like step one. The first step in your presentation to them. So if it says you need the following items in order, well, dude, I would not have your AFOQT and PCSM scores above your cover letter. You know, if it says you need a cover letter, you need a cover letter. If it says stating you're interested in interviewing for and outlining your qualifications, do that. That attention to detail is going to set the tone for how the rest of it goes. You know, it might not necessarily make you stand out, but it in a positive way, but it will in a negative way if you don't do it exactly the way they say to, because that's just part of the fighter business. You know, it's that we're going to talk about accountability later, but that attention to detail is kind of what you're being graded on from this. You know, this is one of those tests, if you will. Now for the rated, there's pretty much nothing because we already have wings. You just need to call them and say, hey, when can I visit? But check this out, millrecruiter.com or the other website, bogeydope.com. Bogey Dope actually has all the AFREC, the Air Force Reserve Command postings as well. Yeah, and I've talked about that. Right. They have the UFT undergraduate flying training program, and there's a whole, if you look at the top left or top right, there's a whole UFT guidebook, and it tells you how, even if you're not interested in AFREC, it just tells you how the process works, how you're going to get selected, how you end up going through the medical process, how, you know, CISO slots are selected, how the pilot slots are selected. All the stuff you ever wanted is right there, so you don't have to ask questions that have already been answered. So it's a good learning opportunity.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I just wanted to talk about that real quick because and then Wicked Spider Black says, have you two ever think of going to space?
I tried in the Hornet. I started to run out of gas.
I would go to space. If that's Elon Musk asking, I'd go.
No, not me. I said it last time. Any place you go, you take your helmet off and your eyeballs pop out of your head.
But that's not how it works. We talk about this every single time. It's not how it works.
It kind of is. Have you seen Total Recall?
Okay, so you're going to see 3 boobs?
Let's hope not.
Garrett says, earmuffs, kids. Garrett says, you need Mooch on the podcast. Where would the drone be controlled? The carrier? How many can you possibly keep? Now, Garrett,
people like Mooch would be controlling the drone.
Well, that's my question. Was this a subtle jab at Mooch that he would be the drone operator?
Garrett, you teed it up. I just couldn't resist. I couldn't resist, man.
I'm curious why this is like a stream of consciousness? Or are you trying to say that Mooch is the all-time drone operator for refueling drones? Honestly, I think it would just be AI. You could just program the thing to do the thing. Like you really don't. You just need some kind of data link to tell it when to extend and begin fueling, which you could probably do it with a sensor once it knows you're plugged in. Like what else?
We don't need those people, is what you're saying.
We don't even need that. Yeah, it's just like, here, launch it off. It does its thing, and it'll see you later.
Yeah.
You need AI.
Yeah.
You need Gronk. All right, let's get this train back on the track, shall we?
Sure.
Is it my turn already? It is.
What's next?
Yeah, we're talking about the
is it Singapore?
Federal government. No, we're talking about the federales.
Oh, look at that.
So in recent news,
don't mess it up.
Yeah. I put the right spelling. Now I'm not going to say I'm going to pronounce it right.
No doubts.
Even though Reuters did the old way. So send all hate mail to them.
Yeah, they spell it just like the bird.
The bird. U.S. Senate defeats bid to stop F-16 fighter jet sale to Turkey. Did I do it right?
Don't ask me, dude. Apparently I don't know.
Massive country of Turkey. And that's not sarcasm.
No, yeah.
They're a huge country, just so you know. We've learned from our ways. The U.S. Senate on Thursday soundly defeated an effort to stop the $23 billion sale of F-16s and modernization kits to Turkey. Remember, we talked about this before, that they had approved a whole bunch of stuff, right? F-35s to Greece, the Hellenic Air Force. We talked about how that was kind of because they've got that GNC stuff going on, and we're like, oh, that's kind of, but they're all NATO partners. And the reason, we'll talk about actually the reason why here in the next segment about the S-400 and why they probably didn't get the F-35, but they had gotten a modernization. So they were going to be upgraded to kind of that Block 70, what everybody else calls the Viper, even though they're all Vipers, with the ESA radar and the new pods, the HDS pods, the missiles, everything you could imagine, both buying new jets off the factory, which obviously is good because it keeps the factory going, and then also modernization. But the Senate, sponsored by Rand Paul, had tried to block it, saying that the sale would embolden misbehavior. And the backers of the sale said it's important for Washington to keep its word for a NATO ally. And basically, the vote went 79-13. So it really wasn't party lines. It was pretty, that's a pretty big margin. Biden administration had informed Congress on January 26th of its intent to proceed with the sale of 40 F-16s and 80 modernization kits to Turkey a day after they fully completed ratification and NATO membership of Sweden. So that might have been part of the deal. Hey, if you ratify Sweden. The sale had been held up for months, issues including refusing to approve Sweden's accession to the military alliance. Turkey first asked to make the purchase in October of 21. So this has been going for a while. You know, you're talking better part of 2 years. U.S. Arms Export Control Acts give Congress the right to stop a major weapons sale by passing a resolution of disapproval in both the Senate and the House. Although laws have been in effect for half a century, no such resolution has passed both passed Congress and survived a veto. So odds are if that would have happened, he would have just vetoed it anyway. Sweden and Finland applied to enter NATO after Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022. Finnish membership was sealed last year. Sweden's bid was held up by Turkey and Hungary. All NATO members need to approve applications from countries seeking to join the alliance. So we've talked about the good and the bad, right? For now, they are NATO allies, and I don't think that's going to change. I'm just saying as the current sit, as it sits, they are NATO allies. And as such, if you're going to say they're NATO allies, then we have to support our NATO partners.
Yeah, the only thing that, I'm a huge supporter of just doing business instead of war with the entire world. But I do find it strange that, and I guess, we're going to talk about it a little bit more later, but, we're not going to sell you the F-35s because you bought the S-400. but we are going to sell you F-16s with the modernization kits. So, I mean, the F-16, the ones they're getting with the more modern ones is a pretty advanced airplane. I mean, it's not an F-35, but it's an advanced airplane. And I just think it's strange that, like, okay, if you're going to penalize a country like Turkey for buying an S-400, then I'm surprised it's not including the F-16. Like, no, you guys want to play with the Russians, that's fine. But I understand they're NATO ally. I just find it interesting. That's all.
Yeah, but I think the logic is not necessarily punishment, is exploitation, right? If you have Russian partners that are giving you S-400s, the Russians who are on the ground are going to take that and use it to exploit the F-30. They're going to test it against it.
100%.
They will get all the data, and we don't want that. The F-16 has been around, and remember, we're not producing the F-16 for ourselves anymore. Not a single F-16 that rolls off the assembly line goes to the U.S. anymore. The only F-16s now. Do I agree with that? No, I think we should buy. Squadrons worth of them, mini squadrons. But as of right now, every F-16 that rolls off the lot is foreign material sales. It's an export version. So they're already getting what the U.S. State Department has approved technology-wise for them to get. So it's no different than any other country, right? It's not the F-35 technology that we talk about. It's F-16 technology that is specific to them. So
I understand that, but there is technology there that it just surprises me that they would pick and choose like that. I mean, I understand the F-35 S-400, sure, but I consider the F-16 still a very lethal weapon in the game of
it is, but again, it's the export version of the F-16. It's the one that's being built specifically for these countries. I mean, Taiwan's getting them. I think Singapore is also getting them. Yep. All of these allied countries are buying the exact same, and all they're doing is giving modernization kits and brand new jets. Now, granted, the technology has caught up so that these F-16s are just as good as ours, but the trump card is we've still got the F-35, we've got the F-22, we've got the F-15EX, US versions and stuff like that. So,
yeah, I don't know. I just still think it's weird, but that's just my own opinion. I'm glad they're getting them, man.
Well, and we're going to talk about that here in the next or future segment about the reason that might change, right? The F-35 thing might change because they're kind of changing their tune a little bit as well, but we'll see. All right, going to the audience, see if there's anything. Turkey, the USA's second choice for national bird. So janitor's back.
Janitor. Thanks, man.
MJ says pronounce Turkey.
Okay. Thanks,
is it Turkey? Turkey or Turkey? Turkey or Turkey?
We're just pilots, MJ.
Like
we're not that
Turkey.
Smart. Hey, I can't.
May the Fonz be with you.
Yes. Thank you, though.
Hey. DG says, Mover, can you tell me in a roundabout way if I should give up on trying to get you back in the cockpit? Are you trying to get?
Hey, yeah.
I'll fly. Hell yeah, I'll fly. Don't give up on Mover.
The old dog still has some life left in him.
Yeah. Look, I will be 60 flying out of my Airstream if I have to. No, don't stop believing. Like me and Penny Benjamin will do barrel rolls into the sunset if we need to.
Yeah.
Although I guess you're more Maverick than I am. I'm Iron Eagle 6.
Yeah, Doug Masters. He didn't make it, did he?
Yeah, he did. He came back. I related to him because when he came back and the one with the World War II birds and the kids, he's like, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an adult. When I was an adult, I wanted to stay an adult. I hated kids. I don't like kids. I'm like, yeah, you know what?
He came back in that one?
Yeah, he came back he was never dead.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to
They killed
rewatch
him in 2, and then they brought him back to life. It turns out he was just a POW.
Next TDY from hell we have. We're gonna have, instead of Airwolf series, we'll have to watch.
I don't know about that. Okay, here we go. T. Wolf Jaeger says Turkey has been spelled and pronounced Turkey, yeah, in Turkish since the country became a republic in 1923.
Okay.
I feel like it's more recent than that. Anyway, DJ, don't stop believing. We'll go back to that one. It's an uphill battle. It's uphill. It's not an easy sell.
Yeah.
He's got nothing. He's like, yeah, sure.
We'll probably just stick to YouTube for now.
Gonky, why don't you talk about the Singapore buys F-35 and
so Singapore, it's a country and a city all in one, right? I mean, it's for such and this is a small country. I know this because I've been there. They have a pretty formidable air force, so they're buying F-35s. And I actually, until I read this article and did a little deep dive, I didn't know that they are buying the A and B version. So apparently they bought the B, and now they're buying the A. And obviously the reasons are because of the tensions in the area, right? So that's, China's right there. And when I was in Malaysia, even the Malaysians were, I don't say nervous, but they definitely kept their thumb on the pulse with what China was doing, because in Eastern Malaysia, they had all their oil and stuff. And the Malaysians and the Singaporeans actually used to be all one big happy country and family, and they split. And so I know Malaysia would kind of compete with Singapore as far as border, like flying airplanes along the border, just kind of keeping each other in check. So I read this article and I just thought that, man, this is probably going to cause the other air forces in the region to also raise their game, which overall might be good if you're trying to keep a country like China on its toes or maybe at bay. But Singapore has like I said, it is geographically, it is a small country. They've got a pretty powerful, they have a very powerful air force. And we were there, the Stennis pulled in there in 06, 07 when I was there. And I mean, not only do they have a really awesome fighter force, but they got Apaches and they don't mess around. So, and they're a very disciplined, very clean, neat, orderly people and country. So I think the F-35 will suit them well.
Yeah, and it says there, they're noting the growing capabilities of the Chinese People's Liberation Army Air Force, which has begun, flying the J-20. You have to counter the threat, and that's how you do it. You peace through superior firepower, peace through strength.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's yeah. I mean, China has stuff they can reach out and if you're in that region, they've got stuff they can reach out and get you. So I mean, you gotta have some pretty high powered stuff, and they're getting it. So that's good. I mean, yeah. Have you ever done any training with the Singaporeans, Mover?
I think they were in Luke. I haven't done training with them, but I know people that flew the Viper with them and stuff when they were at Luke. But no, I've never flown directly with them. So here's the question. What is their, and this might be a little bit too geopolitical, but what is their take on the whole Taiwan stuff and China's insistence in their one China policy? And would they become involved? Right? Because that's the first domino. If you start talking a Pacific theater front.
Yeah, honestly, man, I think they're too far to do.
Is it just deterrence for, expansion?
Yeah,
are they going to donate their jets to that kind of cause?
It's my belief. It could be wrong, but having spent some time there in that area flying, a lot of those countries tend to have more of a defensive mindset. So they're going to preserve what they have. Now, some of their interests, may be beyond, their actual real estate, for example, one time the Malaysians let me go on their deployment with them, and a lot of the areas we patrolled were out over the water because a lot of the oil wells and fields and stuff were rigs out, out in the ocean, but that was their sea space. So
Yeah.
Singapore, there's all kinds of commerce and money stuff going on there. The port's real active. So I don't know if, how much of that they would probably try to keep that going, because Singapore has no natural resources.
Oh.
It's literally, I joke, it's a country and a city all in one, because it is. They don't have any natural resources. They're, they make their money, via business and commerce and stuff. So it's important for them to keep all that open. So I would think that that's probably, defensive in nature and keeping that open for them.
Yeah. I mean, just making one more hard target in that area so they're not susceptible to anything else.
Yeah.
Just as an aside, wasn't Malaysia involved in Somalia, in the Mogadishu in 1993? Weren't they part of that UN force that actually helped save the Rangers?
I don't know. I don't know,
Seems
man.
like I remember Malaysia was involved in that.
I don't know.
Yeah. So Crazy Pete says now you're bullying Singapore. It is sad, actually. You're muted.
I love Singapore. We
partied.
Sentosa Island is where we stayed, and it was amazing. I loved it. Very expensive cab rides, but other than that, it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
They don't sell gum there.
Okay. MJ says that's one of the diminishing benefits of being an Aussie. No one expects us to be able to pronounce anything correctly. Oi, oi.
Same with us who live in the South.
Damn right. Cal Naughton Jr. Cal Neighbor Nebauer says, thoughts on the Bombardier 8000? The hell is that?
I don't know.
They're just making up numbers. It's probably better than the 6000. I honestly don't know anything about it.
I don't.
All right. Well, Gonky, moving on to the next thing that I would like to talk about to you tonight. So
nice looking airplane, dude.
It really is. And so we took a little bit of hate when you bullied the French.
I don't bully
the French and their refoul. Remember, we did that video. You got us canceled. That's actually the video that got us canceled. So please don't say those words again.
Is it the one where he fought the Raptor?
Yes, and the Raptor kind of graped around, and everybody's like, "Oh,
two tanks."
The Raptor sucked." Yeah, he was pulling like 3 Gs, and the refoul's like 9.5 Gs, and his G strain was a little high pitched, a little bit on the high pitch side. I thought it was a little bit.
Who's bullying now?
It's just a debrief. It's a debrief. It doesn't mean. But listen, in this article at this time, now. I am not bullying the French because I am excited for them for their first French Rafale F4.1. It reached IOC, an initial operational capability. And that's an important milestone. We had the Air Force engineer, Rick Abel, on the channel, and we talked about kind of the milestones, and it's kind of universal, right? They start out, in the initial test, then they go to operational test, then it's IOC, and then it's fully mission capable. Or FOC, I think is what they're calling it here. But so the article says it's upgraded to a 4.1 standard, which is actually, they're just modernizing. You're getting into that closer to that Gen 4.5, where you're in this sensor network. There's a data link. They've got, I think it talks about it here. Yeah. So it's new satellite intra-patrol links, communication server, software, radio, a new helmet-mounted sight, a 1-ton precision-guided bomb, the Hammer, which isn't that a cool name, improvements to the air-to-air and air-to-ground targeting systems, enhancements to the self-protection system, integration of the Talios targeting long-range identification optronic system targeting pod. And that's important, too, because it's always a good thing, tactically speaking, when you can reach out and see something or target something with just optics, with an IR, an IRST, something like that. So really cool capabilities, a substantial improvement for the backbone of the French Air Force. And they're going to prepare and operate alongside France, Germany, and Spain. They'll be equipped for a high intensity conflict, and one of the priorities of their new planning law from 2024. But that's a good looking airplane. And going back to what we were just talking about, it takes nothing away when we talk about the Raptor thing. It's a badass machine. High AOA, pulls 9 Gs, has a great turn rate, both instantaneous and sustained. It's a performing aircraft. And when you upgrade the sensors, more modern, get the color displays, get the moving maps, get the data link, get the targeting systems, now you've just made a more capable ally in future conflicts, which is important in Europe because, again, we've got a hotspot in Ukraine. Everybody's worried about it spilling out. The stronger the allies are, the better off everyone is. And upgrading it is important to keep up with new tech.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of countries developing, their own weapons. I mean, the French built the Rafale because they were tired of messing around with the Typhoon. And they built a really good airplane, and it's good to see them continue to advance it. And I'm sure, the sales to India and other countries have helped because this ain't cheap, right? I mean, in France.
That's what I was going to ask you about, actually, didn't we do an article about them selling it to India because India said no to the Super Hornet?
Yeah, the Indian chose it, which the Indian Navy chose the Rafale over the Super Hornet, but the Indian Air Force had already been flying the Rafale. So there's a carrier and non-carrier mission that it can do. It's one airplane I've always wanted to fly. My buddy Kunte in Malaysia, he flew it, and he's like, "Oh man, it's like a Ferrari." I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, "Oh man, it's just so fast."
It's a good looking airplane. Yeah. It performs really well. And my question then is, so is it like the midlife upgrade, right? We took older F-16s and we upgraded them, especially the export versions. We upgraded them to kind of a Block 50, Block 52 standard. The Super Hornet, you can change the OFP and upgrade them. Is it something like this, or is this like the Super Hornet where it's a whole new airplane and you can't retrofit to the older models?
No, it's I'm 99% sure it's not a whole new airplane. The Super Hornet is from the intakes back, basically, is a completely different airframe. The Rafale is they've upgraded, the innards, which, I mean, in modern fighter planes, that's what.
Yeah, and we did that. And you did that. You see that with the F-16. Yeah. Some of the external hardware is different between Block 40, Block 50, Block 30, but then the Block 40, they call it MC jets. The Block 40s and 50s all share that same software. The Block 30s were the SCU, so they had their own software and they upgraded them separately. So if that's the case, then that means these newer jets that are coming out, the Indian versions and export versions and stuff like that, will be able to be upgraded as well as time goes on, and they're fully confident with it. So, I mean, good for them.
Yeah, we actually the Charles de Gaulle, I mentioned it a while back, but the Charles de Gaulle came out and we did some exercises with them, and the Rafale was there, and I fought them BVR, but
beyond visual range.
Yeah, sorry. And then I didn't get to dogfight with any, but a bunch of the guys did get to do BFM with the Rafale, and it's very much like and I flew older a lot back then. Even they were older, Lot 10 Charlie regular Hornets, legendary legacy Hornets, and they were very comparable. And I honestly, I don't know like what variant of the Rafale the French Navy was flying back then, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's kind of kept on step with like Super Hornet as far as like a lot of the radar and countermeasure, like that kind of stuff. So,
well, I'd also be interested to see how it changes the performance, because they didn't talk about any engine upgrades, right? And that happens a lot of times. Like Block 40 was a victim of this. Block 50. As you start getting more advanced tech, you add weight, and so
and it matters.
The within visual range gets worse.
Yeah.
For just basic dogfighting, and by basic dogfighting I mean guns, which rarely happens. Now you've got a helmet, you don't need it. You've got a good missile, you've got a helmet, okay. but performance wise, it loses just a little bit, but gains. I would much rather, if I'm the Rafale pilot, I'm like, give me the toys, because that's what's going to be better in war, because it's a different landscape. You're not going to go to that merge with just the gun, hopefully.
Well, the question is always, when people ask me which version of Super Hornet or which version of the Hornet is your favorite, I'm like, what are we doing? Are we going to war, or are we going to play?
Yeah.
Well,
and so I think other people might talk about, because it's Gen 4.5, when they're talking about electronic countermeasures too, the French are very good at electronic attack, jamming, all that stuff. So those, I think they're going to get upgrades in that as well. I think that's probably, part of it is all of their sensor fusion and all that, self-protection capability that maybe negates the need for a stealthier aircraft and keeps them survivable in a conflict.
Yeah. And I don't know what the French doctrine is. I mean, are they more defensive, or are they off? You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, they have an aircraft carrier, so they do have power projection, but
and it said, patrols, airborne patrols and stuff like that. But I mean, they've been out. I mean, they've been out in conflicts. They've been fighting in the Middle East. They've done plenty of stuff.
That's what they were doing when we were working with them. They were out there, doing OEF. I don't know, OEF or OIF, one of them. But yeah, I'm superficial, man. It's a good looking airplane. I'd love to fly it.
I'd love to see a Gripen next to it. The new Gripen E. I would love, because they look, they look very similar.
I'd fly the Gripen too. Gripen people are listening.
Hey, listen, don't give up on us. You can give up on Gonky. Don't give up on Mover. Janitor's back says, and the Rafale can land on the U.S. carriers.
That's true. I saw it with my own eyes.
What is what does that? What's the delineation? Like, what determines whether you can land on a U.S. carrier or not?
That's a great question, man. I like, from a equipment standpoint, I would think you just need a hook and some sort of light device on the front, so the LSOs can confirm that you are flying the appropriate angle of attack / speed to come aboard. Though I don't remember, they may have done it since then, but pretty sure they were doing all touch and goes. And our guys, I didn't get to go over there and do it, but our guys were doing touch and goes as well. I don't think anybody was hooked
on their ship.
Yeah.
Wow. And they have short ships, right? They just.
And what was gosh, I'm really digging, because that was a long time ago. But what I thought was pretty amazing about them was, like, when if anybody knows in the comments, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but and Mover, you remember, because you talked about this sim that was kind of hard for CQ, but we would calculate our push time, like for the night stuff, Cat 3, whatever. So we would calculate our push time, which when flown correctly would dictate, the interval at trap. The French calculate their, like, over the ramp time, which to me is like, how the hell do you do that? We had a couple French pilots come over and hang out in our ready room, and we sent a couple guys over. They have bars on their ships, just so you know.
Nice.
They're doing it better than we are. I think there's 3 bars on the ship. I don't drink, so I was like, all right, one of you guys go live it up. And they brought a couple French pilots over, and we're just learning about one another. And there were some differences with procedures, but at the end of the day, you're still land a jet on a ship. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, moving on to our next topic. Gonky, you get to say the name for your hate mail.
Dude, I'm gonna say it like we do here in the South, turkey. It's no disrespect. We don't even know how to say it correctly until somebody calls in. You know what? Somebody call in, leave us a message for next week, and educate us on this.
Go.
I'm not cyberbullying here, I'm being honest. Well, yeah, so we've kind of talked about this article already through the other things we've talked about. But hey, will Turkey ditch the S-400s for F-35s, basically? So it's a bit of a long article, but if you read through it, it basically talks about their decision to buy the S-400. Turkey was in on the F-35 development and buy-in, and then they got kicked out, which is what then sparked their desire to build their own 5th gen fighter, which we've talked about, the Khan, which just did its maiden flight about a week ago or so. But apparently getting the F-35 is still on the table. There's some talk about, hey, that was a big mistake. We shouldn't have done that. So, if they decide to not go through with buying the S-400, I guess that it's possible they could be let back in to the F-35 program, but I'm sure there's a ton of politics involved, between that decision happening or not. But it's still on the table, and it's really the way the article reads, it's kind of up to Turkey if they want to do it or not. Doug, did I miss anything in there? I know you read through it. It's kind of long.
It's a diplomatic catastrophe.
That includes the important details.
Yeah. They called it a diplomatic catastrophe. Oh, and I wanted to say in here, they did say that the F-16 was inferior to the F-35. Just wanted Mover to hear that.
That's your opinion.
It's not my opinion. Whoever wrote this is a
RFI.
There it is. But the F-16 is inferior to the F-35.
Yeah, you can just go ahead and take that down.
This is fake news, according to Mover. I don't know.
That's not deep intel at all.
I would think it'd be way easier and cheaper to develop your own SAM system than a 5th gen fighter. So if I was Turkey,
well, why don't they want like the HIMARS or whatever? Like, why didn't they want
Patriot
U.S. missiles? Yeah. What is the why of all? So what does Turkey fly?
Good question.
Do they have
F-16s.
Do they have any other Russian ties? Is this the first Russian equipment that they would?
I mean, as far as modern stuff, yeah. I mean, they're trying to modernize, right? So, I mean, everybody's apparently, trying to get on the 5th gen bandwagon. But I mean, given the choice, I would say it'd be a lot easier. And you bring up a good point, Mover. Stay in the F-35 program and then go buy a surface to air missile from somebody else, not Russian.
Yeah. So I'm looking, however realistic, Wikipedia is and the thing, but they don't have, as far as the Air Force goes, they have nothing that's Russian. Right. So their inventory of aircraft have no Russian ties. So I guess from a diplomatic stance, if you're going to all of a sudden do that, it does raise some eyebrows, right? Because it's not like they have an established relationship like Malaysia. Malaysia, they're flying MiG-29s, flankers, and then they got Hornets, and then they're trying to move on. It's not a mixed fleet where they've already got this established relationship with Russia, and they're trying to kind of diversify and all this. They're a NATO ally that has Western equipment, and all of a sudden you're buying a double-digit SAM, or for the kids at home, for S-400. To explain that, we usually think of SA, 10, 20, 15. We don't use S-400 moniker in our lives because that's just not NATO. But so all of a sudden they're doing this. And so there's two ways that can go. It can be exploitation for Turkey against the S-400, or it can be exploitation the other way. And if you're saying it's a diplomatic strain, then the assumption is they want this F-35 and they're going to go hand off the data to their new friends. And that's a bad thing. When you're a NATO ally, you don't want to be, the whole point of NATO was against the Warsaw Pact, right? I mean, it's the defending against Russia.
And it's like you said, I mean, they're going to get the export version of the F-35, kind of like the export version of the F-16. I mean, but at the same time, I agree with you, man. It does raise some eyebrows if you got Western equipment and you're like, hey, why do you want to go buy this, Russian high-end SAM system? But it probably politics involved.
Not probably. 100%.
Well, there's definitely politics involved, probably
Yeah.
some money floating around there.
Yeah.
It's just too bad. I mean, I don't know, man.
Yeah. Okay. We got some, let's see. Do we have anything from the kids at home? Diane D2 says, have you guys talked about Masters of the Air yet? I'm a bit behind. That show is breaking me. The forts and flight crew are amazing. I don't have Apple TV.
I don't either. I've watched, I've actually watched, there's a lot of clips you can watch on the YouTubes that I've seen. And yeah, I mean, the storyline stuff I've seen so far is really good. I'm a little disappointed with the, I mean, I know they have to use computer generated graphics, but that always takes away a little bit for me.
Yeah, I've seen the trailer. That's it. I've not seen anything. Cluterus says, "Mover, you try out the rain and iRenting yet?" He's talking about iRacing. I have not done any gaming in a while, so no, I'm not. I need to. Moving on. It's bad news, Gonky. I forgot the overlay for the last however long, so everybody's going to be like, why is this a week old? Bad news, Gonky. A tornado has damaged Wright Pat Air Force Base in the museum.
Yeah, they had a tornado roll through, and it damaged a bunch of, they had some Century Series fighters there, and I mean, good thing, but there was no, thankfully nobody got killed, but some of that, they're not building those planes anymore. Once they're gone. Yeah, look at that, man. It really tore up that building.
Yeah. And from what I understand, go back to the email.
Have you been there? Have you ever been there?
Yes, it's a great place. An F-101 and T-33 were damaged, were slated to be scrapped before the tornado.
Yeah. A-26 Invader, F-104, obviously, T-33. There's a lot of damage, and that stuff is, if it's anything, I live down here in the Panhandle. We got the Naval Aviation Museum. A lot of times those airplanes are there on loan from different places.
Yeah, and that's probably why those two were scheduled to be scrapped before. Oh, look, it says that right there, the T-33 trainer and stuff like that. But
there it is.
God, I mean, it just goes to show you how, precious our history is, and how, within moments it can all be gone, right? We try to preserve these aircraft, preserve the history, and then the next thing you know, a natural disaster happens, and there's no warning. It's not like a hurricane where you can hurrivac them. Even if you could hurrivac them, I mean, I'm pretty sure that they're not in a condition you could move them, but I mean, what do you do?
I mean, you do your best, right? I mean, I remember a couple years ago at the Corvette Museum, the National Corvette Museum.
Oh, the sinkhole.
The sinkhole, man.
Sinkhole. I went there after. Doug and I went there after. Remember that, Doug?
Yeah, they wouldn't let us go down in the sinkhole.
Is it still there?
No. I want to say that there's a floor over it, but they have cars that were in it that they pulled out and left in their state that they were in the sinkhole. It's pretty awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, anytime, anytime, like, if, paintings or any kind of artwork, I mean, these were warplanes, but I mean, they're engineering art, right? At the time they were like cutting edge, and it's just, it's sad to see any kind of
the history,
artifacts from the past really be destroyed, because then like, I can't take my kid there to see it, right? And seeing it on TV is one thing, but actually seeing it in person and being able to get up close and look at it, and like look in the cockpit and be like, man, people got in these things.
Well, it's like the SR-71. Like, you don't realize the size. It's smaller than you think, and you look at it and you're like, people got in this thing. Like, the cockpit is so cramped, especially in the back.
And the airplane is massive.
Yeah, but like, you look at it and you're like, okay, it's this big airplane, and then the small, tiny cockpit, and you're like, wow, dude, this saying, oh, wow.
Yep.
And then the space shuttle, like I went to the museum at Dulles at the airport when I went to a school last year, and the space shuttle's massive. I mean, the thing is,
the cockpit?
no, just the airplane.
Oh,
The
yeah.
actual shuttle, it's in this open area. They wouldn't let you into the cockpit, but you just don't, you're right. You don't get that sense of it's not real unless you can touch it kind of thing, and see it up close. And this is our heritage, but it's also, I mean, how many museums did you go to as a kid? This is what inspires the next generation.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
this
air shows and
preserves the history.
museums.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I mean, hopefully, hopefully they can rebuild, some of the, if they can repair the ones they can repair, but it's always a lot, and a lot of like the, a lot of the warbirds you see flying, a lot of it's volunteer, right? It's not really funded, right? So, and it becomes a cost issue, unfortunately. And sometimes it's like, we just have the money to bring this thing back.
Well, that reminds me of the AN-225, the Ukrainian. If not the last one, one of the last ones.
Yeah, I got blown up.
And the airstrike took it out, or the base attack, and so Microsoft Flight Sim made a module, and the funds from that module are going to try to rebuild this thing eventually. Whether it happens or not, I don't know.
Wow.
But you're talking about the money piece. Like, there are creative ways they're trying to do it. Now, granted, this is a one of like, two.
Yeah.
I mean, there are not many.
Did you see the video of it? That thing is tore. I mean, that thing is tore up.
Yeah, but that versus the T-33, which there's still civilian T-33s flying around. There's still F-100s and F-101. Like, some things are the only way to get it back is to refurbish it, and some things are like, well, there's other ones that maybe can be donated. Like, if a T-38's in the museum, you can get another one. In fact, they're still flying. But if it's something more rare, like an SR-71 or a space
XB-70, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Some of these original,
they made like one
actual
or two.
Historic, right? And this is the one that was used on this date.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it's not just the airplane, but it's the story behind it.
100%.
You get to see kind of what they did. So
you go to the museum here in Pensacola, and it's like right next to the, hey, this is a P-40 Warhawk, and then it's like, this airplane was involved in the Battle of Umpty Freight, and as a kid, man, you can just even as an adult, it blows my mind.
Yeah, because you can you picture it. You picture that story. You picture kind of what that pilot must have gone through it. And I have more of an appreciation for it now than I did when I was a kid.
100%.
Right? When I was a kid, it's just, buttons, flip the switch and all that stuff. But then now, having done it, you're like, I can picture it.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I was like, just like in Baba Black Sheep, I was like, but now I realize there's a lot of horror and, bad stuff going on. But yeah, you're right, man. It's sad.
Yeah. All right. Gonky.
Yes, sir.
The 10th anniversary of Malaysian Airlines 370.
Yeah, I think March 8th. And we did a little thing a while back about this, and I was there. My in-laws were on a flight out of Penang the same night that this 777 took off out of Penang. So the next day was a little hairy for a couple of minutes for us when we saw that a airliner had disappeared. So basically, they haven't got much. The families haven't had much in the way of closure, right? Because it's still kind of, it's a mystery. There's some new technologies available, Ocean Infinity and stuff that, hey, maybe we found it here, using some new techniques. So there's talk of reviving the search for it. I read somewhere where they spent something like $170 million looking for it. And
That's
then
insane.
They finally quit. I
mean, not for the people. I mean, obviously, there's no cost to get the people back. I'm just saying that is a lot of money.
That's a solid effort. My only question, like I said, I was there, and I knew the very next day, which direction that airplane went. And I sat for 2 weeks and watched why the entire world looked somewhere off the coast of Vietnam for this thing. And that's the question in my mind. So, people are like, what happened to MH370? I want to know why the whole world for 2 weeks was looking somewhere else. And who is the point person that caused that? Some people, it's the Malaysian government and their incompetence. I disagree.
Well, because you know that the Malaysian government knew, right?
Yeah.
That they knew where it was.
Dude, I showed up to work and they had all the guys were there. All the jets had 3 tanks on them. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And they're like, oh man, we went out and looked for MH370. I'm like, you went to Vietnam? They're like, nah, man, we went, the other way. And I was like, why? Because I'd watched the news. I'm like, dude, you got the compass backwards? What's going on? And I mean, I don't know. Like I said, that's the question in my mind. So for literally 2 weeks, I'm watching the news. They're like, oh, we're looking off the coast of Vietnam and this is the flight path it took. I'm like, oh, no, it didn't. So there's there's discrepancies. They did about 6 months ago, they did a special, I can't remember who did it, on MH370. And it was basically, conspiracy theorists.
Well, hold on. You got a chat for conspiracy theories. Eric says, MH370 condolences to the families of those involved. The jet was brought down by a Thales Starstreak system of Malaysia and blamed on a UFO abduction.
I don't think so, man. I don't. There were a lot. There were discrepancies, and the fact that they were smoke screening that airplane's actual flight path for 2 weeks tells me that there was. In my mind, man, if I think there was some criminal, crazy stuff going on. I think that airplane landed somewhere. It either landed in the water, on purpose, for some reason, or it landed somewhere and it, got drugged into a hangar. That's my own.
Oh, you think they're still? They could be still there.
Mover.
That's a lot of people.
How do you lose?
Yeah, but okay. So
I get it. The Marines can lose an F-35. I get it. But how do you
right? But okay. So anytime it's like the whole 9/11, and I'm so glad this is on your channel. It's like the whole 9/11 conspiracy theories, right? It's like at some point you have to go, okay, how did so many people, if this is a conspiracy and this is this scale, how do so many people stay quiet? Like, how do you, because remember some of the 9/11 conspiracies, they're the same thing, right? That they landed and it was a cruise missile and it really wasn't a jet and they landed somewhere and all that stuff. So how would you keep that many people quiet after 10 years?
Money. I don't know.
239 people.
Mover, I'm not, look, dude, I don't have all the answers. All I know is when I was there, I was literally bouncing my head off the wall, because the world is looking for MH. I'm like, you're looking the wrong freaking area, dude.
So they weren't looking at. So the Hornets when they said they were looking, where were they looking?
They went west.
So they went to the correct place. So at least. So it's not that they weren't looking; it's that they weren't telling the world where they were looking.
Yeah, for whatever reason, that information is not shared, dude. And I'll tell you, you're not going to sit here and tell me the Singaporeans didn't watch what was going on. You're not going to say, you know what I'm saying? There's just, I don't know everyone's capabilities. And this is a little bit of speculation, but as a guy flying tactical jets in that area, and, having an idea of their capabilities and military capabilities in general, and what I saw with my own eyes, I asked the question, who and why did the smokescreen exist, as far as hey, everybody look over here for a while? Why? I don't know.
Have you seen this document? John says the Netflix documentary Mitch
that's
70
it.
plane that disappeared does talk about internal government cover-up.
Yeah, and is the Malaysian government involved? Maybe, I don't know, but I don't think. It's my own opinion. I don't think it was. I don't think it was all of them, or I don't even really think that they had a whole lot to do with it. But that's just, dude, that's just Gonky. I'm just, this is all just jokes and good times, and I'm just telling you what I saw.
Yeah. Don't.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
Yeah. I'm mentally
This
stable, perfectly happy.
This is not a news channel.
No,
this is
a ready room.
Purposes. Yeah,
ready
for
room environment
purposes only.
But Mover, put yourself in my shoes, man. You come to work, right? You drink your coffee in the morning. You're like, oh my gosh, that thing went over there and disappeared. Then you go to work, and all the jets are like long range set up, and you're like, what the hell's going on?
Dude, I'm not. Look, I just don't think it's aliens. That's what I'm going to be reasonably confident, because you have seen that video with where they're like, we've got a high res satellite video of these little things and it disappears. And I'm like, that's the stupidest, fakest thing. How'd you get access to a classified satellite?
Yeah. The sad thing is the sad part, man, is like, no matter what, unfortunately I do believe, I think those people are gone. That's the sad part. So and really at the end of the day, after answering the question, why and who authorized the whole look over here, there needs to be closure for the families, man.
So I guess could it be, because Gonky, you know how incompetent government can be at any level. How many times have you had mixed messaging where, the right hand's not talking to the left hand? So, I mean, could it just be as simple as, the military knew to go look this way, the civilian authorities had this theory, nobody's talking?
Not for 2 weeks, man.
Yeah.
And the other thing is like, being in the US, we have a lot more resources and a lot more just personnel, dude. In Malaysia, Singapore, that whole region, the Hornet Squadron, as they had 8 airplanes, period. Yeah. Right. So everything is much smaller. So it's so hard for me. Yes. Incompetent things happen there, just like they do in the States. But to me, it's just something planned, very well planned and coordinated in my mind had to happen. And I don't know if like a rogue 777 captain could just pull this off, but I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong, but who knows? Well, I mean, we're going to find out. I'm a firm believer we will find out.
It's like the Amelia Earhart thing eventually.
Yeah, you're right.
Eventually.
Well, we have Twitter now, so we're gonna find out.
It's called X, Gonky.
What? Sorry.
It's called X.
Sorry.
All right. To the chat, Vulcan says, "Hey, Mover, our power utility company is looking for helicopter pilots to fly linemen and do line inspections. Would you be interested? Is it in St. Tammany Parish in part-time? That would be the question, because I don't need a job. Like, I'm not. We're talking military jobs mostly. There are a couple civilian jobs, but we're mostly talking military jobs when we're talking about this stuff. And even military jobs, we're not. We're just. Elias says, long story short, I'm in Pensacola thanks to you two and Mace and company. Thanks, Deuterino. Solid content and advice.
Hey, awesome, man. That's awesome.
Hell yeah. Congratulations. And he means for flight training, I'm assuming, not just on vacation. Yeah.
Hey, it's a great place to live.
It is a vacation. Yeah, he's outside your window, Gonky. Auburn alum says, that's wise. Auburn alum says, my son is an aspiring aviator. His desire is to be a pilot that supports those on the ground and save lives. What branch is focused on this best for their mission? Marines. Navy, Marines, Coast Guard. I'm going to throw down and say all of them except the Coast Guard.
Yeah.
Because every standard answer, it depends. It depends on the conflict. But
well, dude, he says save lives, right? And let's be honest, man, the coasties are saving lives, wartime, peacetime.
You're right.
At
I
home.
skipped over the saves lives part. So you're right. It for saving lives, I would be an Air Force PJ. Like fly the pararescue helicopters.
Out of Patrick.
Mm-hmm. Or
Yeah.
Tucson.
I do know this. Man, Coast Guard aviation is a good deal.
Yeah.
There's some really it's been a while because my my cousin was looking into it, and they have some really good, like, from college to flight school, pay for college, make money. They have some really good lead-in programs to to aviation. I mean, it's worth looking into. The Coast Guard, they go to the same, have gold wings, just like, naval aviators and, Marine aviators. They go to the same training that, the Navy guys and Marine guys do. So they get the military training. But their organization in general is, they are mainly rescue, and that's probably where I would go.
I think you can't go wrong in any of these, like Air Force, Navy, like there's no right answer, because in some way, every piece of aviation is a support asset to something on the ground.
Yeah, 100%.
Like you're not the, like, even the not a pound for air to ground folks. There's Zamboni drivers. Once the picture's clear, the real players get to work. Everybody is a support asset for somebody else, and that somebody else is the 18-year-old with a rifle eventually that has to hold the ground, because otherwise, might as well just throw some tomahawks at stuff and call it a day.
You got to, I mean, if you're in a real conflict, you got to own their real estate.
Yeah. Janitor is back. Says the shuttle display in California is now full stack with boosters and external tank. Also saw the shuttle land in White Sands in 1982. Wow. Nice. MJ A says, do we really want the proliferation of the F-35? The world already has an obesity problem. Cluterus.
I love it.
What's the bigger conspiracy, 9/11 or the moon landing? I think as far as believable conspiracies, I think they're both dumb as far as conspiracy theories go. But
don't ask who was it that punched the dude in the face?
Buzz Aldrin.
Don't tell Buzz Aldrin the.
Well, okay. So if you're talking conspiracies, what's a simpler conspiracy? It's the moon landing, right? Because that's more closed and contained and easier to. It's a smaller group to fake. The 9/11 thing, dude, you had thousands of people that witnessed it either on live television, on the ground, in New York, were there when the second plane hit. Same thing with the Pentagon. I mean, I know people that were in the Pentagon when this happened. So now, the conspiracies, the sub-conspiracies, if you will, of like, well, hey, we knew they were there. We knew they were going to do it. We let it happen or whatever. Yeah, okay. There could be conspiracies there. But just to say the whole thing was fake or didn't happen or no airliners were used and stuff like that, I think that's a lot of people versus NASA, where it's just a small group of people, But I think both of them are stupid. So,
yeah, I think we went to the moon in the 60s.
400%.
Yeah.
100%. Kyle says, say it. I'm happy, healthy, and not suicidal.
That's it.
Gonky, you're probably the one that needs to say that. Go ahead and say that, Gonky, for the record.
Yeah. I am happy, healthy, and definitely not suicidal.
Yeah. I love my life. Moving on, not to be suicided by the Chinese. So check this out, dude. In the history of, this is not it, by the way. I looked at that and I'm like, oh my God, that looks exactly like it. That is not, I don't think the Chinese would put ED on the side of their bomber. But the China's H-20, here you go, there's a mock-up of it. Stealth bomber could prove to be a real threat. So basically, they're saying if it wasn't bad enough, they're continuing to make strides with their 5th gen Chengdu J-20. And then they obviously use that against the intimidation exercises against Taiwan, because that's their big thing. But there's a concept of how the H-20 is expected to look. So this is all pretty much media speculation, but it hints that it could be very similar to the B-2. And where they saw it was that what appeared to be a silvery metallic wind tunnel test model that bears a close resemblance to the Northrop Grumman B-2 Spirit, which also kind of looks like the B-21. Given China's penchant for copycatting or outright stealing U.S. military technology, it's not, it's not out of the realm of possibility, according to this article. Alex Hollings from Sandbox News points out that it does indeed literally and figuratively get off the ground, that it'll in turn will entail the first publicly disclosed non-American stealth bomber ever to fly, could usher in a new era of strategic air power. And then they try to, the Chinese Daily declared that the Air Force does need an intercontinental strategic bomber capable of penetrating an enemy's air defense, that the new design would be required to carry 10 tons of bombs, 4,970 miles. And I didn't do the math, but what do you think is 4,970 miles away from China? Just saying.
Yeah. Not kilometers, miles.
No, I didn't read the commie units. The institute sets many national records, including so the ZAC, Jian Aircraft Industrial Corporation, named for its host city, is widely understood to be the prime contractor, and they've done the KJ 2000 and the JH7. And this says it creates urgency for the B-21, and right now the B-21 seems to be within budget. So it's a lot of media speculation right now, and I wanted to talk about just kind of the implications of them having a stealth bomber. But if they're just doing wind tunnel testing, they're still trying to figure things out, right? They've got a little model. They know what the B-2 looks like. They kind of know what the B-21 looks like, because they've been flying around publicly, and so they're doing their own testing to see kind of how it works and what the best design is going to be, and how they move forward. Does that mean it's far off? I don't know, because they may or are probably not as constricted with the contracting woes that we are. They probably don't have that problem when everything's state run. And they have a very robust espionage program where they can cut corners and kind of borrow some stuff here and there. But the tactical or strategic implications of them having a stealth bomber, it's significant. If they do end up producing this thing and it can go, almost 5,000 miles, does it change postures? Does it change kind of what we're worried about?
Yeah. I really don't see, I really don't see, China trying to attack mainland US. But dude, if it has 5,000 mile range, it could certainly reach out and slow down any kind of task force that's coming to defend, say, Taiwan, right? Or something like that. So you're right. It basically, gives them a long arm reach, right? But I think this thing is years out, if it ever actually comes to, fruition at all. Could be wrong. But they have a habit of kind of, not kind of, but copying stuff. So I don't know, man. We'll see. It might even look like a B-2 or B-21, but it may not have, and it probably won't have nearly the capability.
So just some back of the napkin math here. That range would get you to Hawaii.
Yeah.
So it's like the missile warnings unrefueled, right? That's a one-way trip. That's a one-way trip to Hawaii. Where that's a bigger concern is you don't need to go 4,000 miles for the Taiwan Strait, right? That's the current hotspot. That's the current where we're worried about stuff. We're worried about the Pacific. You're right. We're not worried about LA, maybe Hawaii, but now with hypersonic missile technology, does that give them kind of a longer stick to do that? Yeah. But I agree with you. I think the fact that we don't even have, because look how long some of these other aircraft have taken once they've even had a model, like a workup. We're just talking wind tunnel testing at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And the jury's still out on, is their 5th gen stuff really?
Yeah, right.
Jenny? I don't know. Right?
Gen A.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point, Gonky. Yeah. All right. And let's see from the audience real quick before we go. Ray, new member.
Hey, welcome.
Delta Air Common Lines. MedTech says, thank you. Patek worked on Apollo guidance. We went to the moon.
Yep. I
Yes.
think we most definitely went to the moon.
We landed on the moon?
When?
Dumb and Dumber. Aaron says, can I copy your homework?
He must have been to Navy flight school. No, just kidding.
Yeah. All right. Gonky, this one's going to make you sad.
Oh, gosh, dude.
This is about the Super Hornet and how long it's...
this article, whoever wrote it, I don't know. I don't remember the guy's
Logan Williams.
Logan. Jury's out on if I like him or not. Anyways, so the plan is
that last sentence. Well, hold on. Read the last sentence of that first paragraph, please.
This is why the jury's still out, man.
No, this dude's got it. He's right. First of all, this man speaks my language. Go ahead, read it.
I can't read. I'm going to summarize. You read it.
Well, all right. It says the F-18EF Super Hornet has been a mainstay of the naval aviation fleet for several decades. Has it been several decades?
Yeah.
Jeez, we're old.
Gosh,
it is the U.S. military's carrier-enabled 4th-generation fighter jet. Think the U.S. Navy's version of the ubiquitous F-16 fighter jet platform. And I love that this is how we relate airplanes to people.
Yeah.
Because obviously the world's greatest fighter is what everybody knows. And who cares about the Super Hornet thing? I mean, and again, in the second paragraph, it says the F-18E, /F is receiving a new array of upgrades, much as the F-16 did.
Yeah.
Go on, Gonky. This is your article.
Like I said, this guy, I think he watches a lot of Discovery Wings. Anyways, Anyways,
this Doug Masters wrote this. Go on.
The meat and potatoes of the article is valid and true. Extending the Super Hornet's life into 2040 or even beyond. Extending the flight hour, the airframe's ability to go from 6,000 to 10,000 hours is huge. And of course, that'll be assisted by things like, the drones or the drone tankers and stuff. So if you can take away some of the missions it's doing now, and then they're going to give it more capability. So there's a whole laundry list of stuff, like all kinds of nerd stuff, right? Faster computers, even Earth's capability, more fuel.
Sounds very similar to what the Rafale's getting.
Yeah, exactly. So we kind of talked about this. It's I don't know. Like with 4th gen fighters, it's almost like, the evolution of a solid design, or do you scrap it and start over with 5th gen? I don't know. Right. So, and it's still debatable what classifies the jet as 5th gen. What's the, stealth? Well, the Super Hornet is stealthy against the mech radar. It's not as stealthy, but so what's the metric, right? So I think it's
can a Tomcat beat it with Tom Cruise flying it?
Dude, with Maverick, he beats everything.
I think that's what determines whether it's against 5th gen, because he goes against 5th gen. Like,
yeah, he probably, because he didn't know the NATO calls. Yeah, he couldn't remember. It's a felon. No, it's a. Anyways,
Fallon? No, I'm at Fallon. No, I'm not at Fallon. I'm not even at Top Gun right now.
Yeah. So, given the Super Hornet the ability to handle drones, right? The loyal wingman kind of stuff. And just to keep it, you touched on it a little bit earlier, man, the whole idea of each of these fighters being in a coordinated data link, right? So, it's all about networking and information sharing on the battlefield for tactical decision makings or for tactical decision making, so you can win, right? So that you want, you would want probably arguably the backbone of your fleet, the Super Hornet, at least for now and into the future, to be a part of that. So they're just keeping the airplane modern. And the picture they showed at the beginning, that's when I worked at Boeing, that was referred to as the International Roadmap Hornet. And it's a pretty awesome machine. I think, some of the Block 3 stuff has been incorporated into, this 2040 plan, which is starting to roll out now. The only thing, the only thing, all these toys and stuff are great, but as a fighter, I'm a big fan. It needs more thrust, because like you mentioned, Mover, like as the airplanes, like this stuff isn't weightless.
Right. Well,
Right,
sometimes
so-
it does reduce weight, right? Like an ESA radar from a mech, you can lose some weight there, and
Yeah,
depending on the wiring, sometimes when you go to the Ethernet versus the old
that's
mill
true.
standard buses, you lose some of that wiring weight.
That's true, but inevitably,
Yeah,
airplanes get heavier.
if you're like this guy saying that this thing's your home router and you're a Wi-Fi node, I'm sure that's adding some weight. However, this, I think this turns into the standard. What's the next conflict going to look like? And it's digital and it's information. And having this being the network node, you're getting the loyal wingman, you're getting all the intelligence, you're getting battlefield awareness. Now, at what point is too much information? Do you have too much information and it just bogs you down because you can't process it all?
Yeah, and then then there's the argument from knuckle draggers like me that technology that's all these the network, the data, all that stuff, it's all defeatable. I mean, that's my beef with it. You can
Yeah.
spend a lot of money in training on developing an entire battle plan based off, information being fed to you. But if that's cut off, and it doesn't even have to be cut off completely, if it's partial bits, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's, as we found out in Vietnam, and I know that was a long time ago, but BVR was the plan with the F4, and that didn't pan out. And even in Gulf War 91, a lot of that stuff was, if it wasn't like pure BFM, it was definitely inside of ranges that, I mean, that we would want to be at in modern fighters today. I mean, I just, when you weigh the rules of engagement with jamming, EA technology, all that stuff, man, I just see some of the technology piece falling out. And then that's when it's important to have, the Super Hornet has a lot of capability, but if you can't get that airplane up high enough, fast enough, sometimes, shot ranges and stuff like that are going to suffer, right? You want a high performance airplane is what I'm saying. And it is a high performance airplane, no doubt about it. But if you start adding a bunch of weight to it, I think a little more power would be.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
just my own opinion, because I like power too. I like lots of thrust.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can never have too much thrust.
Yeah, more power. John says maybe soon, since the Chinese are making a concerted effort to hire U.S. military personnel. He's talking about the H-20, sorry. Will there be an Ultra Hornet? I think it's a Mega Hornet at this point. Like the next one's got to be the Mega.
Yeah, I mean, this Hornet, the Block 3, and I don't know if they're going to do a Block 4, whatever, but it's an amazing airplane. I mean, Mover, remember when we were flying against, well, gosh, it's been almost 10 years ago, right? We're at 204, but man, the Navy, the latest and greatest Hornets we flew against when we were Red Air and F-18As, those things were pretty, they're pretty good,
Yeah. Zippers Forever says, wait, I learned the TACP trade on the A7, A6, A4, and OV10 was around for the first plastic bug, aka the F-18A. The article makes me sound old. If it's all about the network, the future of Navy fighters is the E2 with Wombat. Riley says F-18 this, F-16 that. We all know the F-15 is the greatest jet platform ever. Before I answer, is your name Po Boy or the other? Who am I talking to right now?
We all know the Eagle's a big grape. It's cool.
You got 1,000 CLPs for your gun.
Cool.
Clean,
you.
lubricate, protect. What is a CLP? All right.
Dude, I don't know.
Gonky, let's get serious for a minute. It's time to talk about the mental health minute. Today we're going to talk. So this was from John, actually. He talked about accountability in a different sense, but we figured we'd kind of adapt it to us because we don't want to get like somebody to come after us. But accountability is important. And we do this every day as fighter pilots in any high performing industry. You have to be able to take accountability for your own actions. And as fighter pilots, we say in the debrief, sometimes there's no rank and you want to be upfront and honest and own your mistakes. I did this. In fact, and sometimes in the Navy, Gonky, in some debriefs I've seen where they don't say I, they say their own call sign, right? That's a Top Gun thing where it takes away the personal nature of it. And it's River 11 did this, not Mover or not Gonky, but you're still taking accountability for it. And the important thing is in anything, when something goes wrong, it's best to stop digging. And I have seen this in law enforcement. I've seen this in the military. I've seen this in my current job, and I've done it myself. When you get into a situation that sometimes isn't going your way, a lot of times we kind of want to get into defensive mode, and by doing that, when we try to turn everything outward, we make things worse. Versus if we make a mistake and we realize that, we say, "Yep, I screwed up. Here's what I did. And how do we fix it?" 9 times out of 10, when you raise your hand and say that, people will want to help you and they'll try to do their best to keep it from getting worse. It's when you don't own up to it, especially in an industry like flying a fighter or aviation, you'll lose a lot of trust when you can't take that accountability. So we talk about this in the sense of mental health because I think that when you don't take that accountability, you're kind of lying to yourself. You're kind of lying to yourself about what's going on, and you may end up spiraling into a situation that is much, much worse than if you just said, "Yep, I did this, and please help me fix this," versus you either run away from it or you push back and never try to own it. And it just gets worse and worse and worse until eventually you're in a situation where your mental health is so bad you can't take it, and you either turn to drugs, depression, or alcohol, or you end up making a permanent decision for a temporary problem. And this is my weekly talk about if that is the case, it's always better to reach out to a wingman, reach out to a friend. 988 is a good hotline. If you're thinking about taking some permanent action. Military One Source, a lot of wings have a director of psychological health that you can go to. You can go to your chaplain. You can go to your leadership. You can call 911. If no one else will listen, it's better to take that accountability for the things that are going wrong and ask for help than it is to try to fight it alone. And then nothing ever goes, it just gets worse. So, Gonky, what do you got?
Yeah, as usual, you hit all the highlights. I'll just add, it's obviously in the flying world, whether you like it or not, you're held accountable because, if you don't fess up, it will reveal itself. I would say, man, to add to what you said is, the struggle is being accountable when nobody's looking, right? And sometimes that's when it counts, right? So, if you're struggling with something or if you're trying to do something, you're your own worst enemy sometimes. And like you said, if you don't hold yourself accountable and you don't face reality, and when that happens, perception begins not to be reality, and that can be a bad thing. Because, you know, you know, a lot of times, you know, you have more experience than I do in this, but when I've seen, you know, mental health go sideways, a lot of times you just step back and you're like, this person, what they're thinking and believing really isn't true right now. There's a lot of people that actually do care. You know, there's actually a lot of people that you know, that want to help, kind of thing, right? So holding yourself accountable when nobody's looking, I think is a challenge. And there's all kinds of ways you can do that. And you know, one thing that I read it in a self-help book somewhere, but you know, I try to be I try to take accountability for everything that happens to me, right? And how I react to that. And I think what that has allowed me to do is, you know, get in front of problems. And a lot of times, you know, like you talked about, you know, running away from stuff. A lot of times that's not the right thing to do. And I'm not here to say that I get in front of problems and, you know, divide and conquer. That's not usually what happens, but it's just the exercise and the just the acknowledgement of, hey, you know, somebody needs to be accountable, and it might as well be me. And a lot of times this stuff is with family stuff and whatnot. But yeah, man, being accountable and to yourself when nobody's looking, I think, is probably about the only thing I can add to what you said. You pretty much covered it. Doug?
I was getting something ready, and then you did it right at the end there. It's a great part of relationships. I mean, if you're in a relationship with somebody and you did something, and like Mover said, everybody's getting defensive, just saying, hey, that was me, my bad. What do we do to move on? That, and it's really important in high performance situations like flying and racing. You better be accountable, because the next time you do it, it's liable to kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like in a debrief, right? You tell young wingmen, speak when spoken to. But not just that, because you should be absorbing, you should be learning. But also, I think that when you're in a situation like that, and it's a high performance, high stress environment, the worst thing you can do is try to explain yourself away, because 9 times out of 10, the instructor on the other side knows. They've been there, they've seen that, they know the common errors. You're not the first person to make this mistake. And when you start trying to explain it away, it takes away from the learning versus, yep, I'm sorry, you know, I screwed that up. And not even I'm sorry, just acknowledging the fact that you did it and then accepting how to fix it. Because I think we internalize criticism a lot, because we talked about this, you know, with the haters and stuff like that. But when it's actual valid criticism, the idea is not to attack you as a person. It's to fix something to make you better. And as soon as you realize that the whole point of any of that is to make you better, then you look for it. You seek it out. You start going, hey, what can I do here? What can I do there?
It teaches you to be humble as well. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe maturity is not the right word, but if you have the maturity enough to be able to, you know, accept, you know, the responsibility, or, you know, take on the accountability of what has happened. Right. So.
Yeah. And on a less serious, but still serious note, I forgot to, you and I talked about this weekend, Gonky. I made fun of you using the wrong word, and I'm sorry.
Which time?
On the last
Which
mental
time?
health minute. So I called. So we had this Marine in my squadron when I was in pilot training that would call everybody a mongoloid. And for whatever reason, I was searching for the word to call you for somebody who doesn't use technology. Well, apparently that's a Luddite, right, Doug? That's the word I'm looking for.
That's definitely a Luddite. Yeah.
Yeah. Mongoloid is like
Luddite is definitely better than the other word.
Yeah. So I said that. I shouldn't have said it. I didn't.
I am a knuckle dragger.
Right. But that's mongoloid's more like it's not the right word. So I apologize, because I know, you know, I mean, I don't ever want to make fun of real people with special needs, but my brother's got special needs. So it's definitely something I'm sensitive to. But I meant to call you a Luddite. And
See, he bullies me in real life.
well, sometimes it just, you start rambling. No, this was on the Mental Health Minute a while back, and nobody said anything. Like, nobody called me out for it. So I apologize, because I didn't realize it until I was watching. I'm like, does that sound right? And then I Googled it. I'm like, oh, no, that's not the word. That is not what I was looking for. So anyway, back to the serious part. Some people from the chat have actually said some things. Midnightly says, people who take accountability seriously not only elevate themselves with their honesty and open disclosure or disclosure, they raise everyone around them, and people want to work with them. Be that person. Yeah, you don't want to be with the other one, the opposite of that. Kyle says, starting with no excuse allowed us to then break down the tabletop and learn. 31 years with Dallas Fire, 100%. And that works in law enforcement.
Yep.
Any high stress, high performance job.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't trust somebody if they're not willing to own it. You know, if there's always an excuse and there's always a, but I was thinking, or, but this happened. It's like, no, man, just.
Yeah. 100% of the time, the guys if you ever flew with anybody that just nothing was ever their fault, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, man, you're going to have to be on your toes.
Yeah. John says, by placing a mirror to your actions, help with trust and confidence from colleagues and those you may lead. Be honest to yourself first, and it's okay to say it's completely my fault. Right. And that doesn't mean you have to go to the extreme, right? And oh, it's my fault, I'm so sorry. Oh, it's my fault, I'm so sorry. There's a balance. There's the accountability for things you realize that need to be fixed. And, you know, sometimes you're not wrong. You know, sometimes you did do the right thing, and you do need to speak up and say, hey, this is what actually happened, or this was my perception of it. You know, I always had a flight lead that said, hey, ask the cool questions. Don't make statements, you know, just like, hey, but is this right? And, oh, yeah, my bad. You're right. Because sometimes that's true, too. Right, Gonky? I mean, you know, we're not infallible on either side of the table.
No. No, I make all the mistakes.
Kyle says, may I show forward operators group, a 501c3 Discord mostly dedicated to unaliving prevention? Hell yeah. How do you do? Do you just look up forward operators group? Yeah, do that. Yeah, 100%. MJA says, super important. If you don't own your mistakes, you won't learn and you won't move on. Owning up doesn't equal punishing yourself. It means acknowledging dumping the baggage that would otherwise accrue, learning and moving on with a stronger compass.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is it for the relevant comments. I think any reattacks on the mental health part?
I almost shot off one of my fingers one time. If I didn't take accountability, I would have a lot less fingers.
Yes, I know the finger goose.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do
it was 100% my mistake.
Hey man, you owned it good.
Back to the CLP. SEBA gave you CLP 1000. Hi, sir. If I send DCS, can you play it?
I don't have DCS. I have to go borrow.
He's going to send it to you, or SEBA is going to send it to you.
Okay.
I'm Ron Burgundy. You can play it on your MacBook, dude.
I think he was talking about I can't even talk about it. Building a mission, right?
No, he said, if I send DCS, can you play? SEBA wants to send you DCS and then have you play it. But DCS is free to play.
Yeah, so I'll have to play it somewhere other than my residence because my wife is not a fan. Mover can play because he doesn't have such restrictions as Gonky. So
King in the castle.
I'm a limited airframe over here. So,
Gonky is not in command of his own ship.
I'm not full up anymore.
Hey, that's a good segue, dude. Hey, speaking of DCS, I think that's the one we're on this week.
Oh, me and the F-14. Yeah.
So
that thing was fun.
So we kind of did it out of order, right? The last one was the F-86. Then we got into the P-51. You guys already saw that. That was what we let off with because we thought it was going to be popular. It was not. None of these DCS videos have been all that popular. Nobody wants to watch a couple has-beens.
I don't blame
out
them.
On a video game.
I don't blame them.
These are much shorter because we only did like one set each.
Yeah.
And that's this one. So we've got, I think what we have left is the Tomcat versus the F5, then the Tomcat versus the Su-27. And then Hornet,
Yeah.
we may have done a MiG-29. But I think, and those were all one-offs. We just did one each. So those are going to be super short videos for the next couple of weeks. But then at the end, I think the more interesting one is we did the it was a Tomcat, or it was a P-51 versus the 109. Is that what I was
Oh
on?
yeah, no, it was a 109. Yeah, that was,
Yeah.
yes, it was. That thing has leading edge slide. That's crazy.
Yeah, that thing was awesome, dude.
Yeah, it was.
And that will
German-
end it.
Germans
So
had
we'll
it
end it
figured
on the 109, and then you have to go back, and we'll do
5 more hours of BFM.
Allegedly, no, we're not doing 5 hours, for the love of God. Allegedly, they've changed the flight model of the Hornet
Yeah,
to
the
give
Hornet,
it more
yeah.
alpha.
More alpha?
More alpha.
You could always use more thrust and more alpha, man. You just can't.
Slow speed performance has been improved, and it doesn't rate around as well. So it's more like a Hornet.
I will give my opinion and then promptly get squashed by the online.
You will be told how wrong you are, but
Yes,
you will
by
take
the-
accountability for such things.
I will 100%. These are my words, and I speak them with confidence. Whether they're right or wrong, TBD.
Yeah. So we'll go because I got to do the Viper, because the Viper's got a new flight model too. So we'll do another Viper versus
Cool.
Hornet just to try that
Okay.
out, and then we'll do Viper versus Gonky gets to do the weirdo things, the MiG-21 and the Tomcat and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So
Yeah. Hey, and if you're in Pensacola, definitely swing by Wings. Check out Butch.
Mhm.
Butch it's like a museum / DCS. Man, it's awesome. And he's got stories for days.
Yep.
That's where I go. They have my virtual jet.
Virtual jet.
They keep it shiny.
Jander's back says, is the DCS F-14 with inverted communication? You know the fingers. You had the hands, right? Didn't you have the jazz hands?
I did, yeah, but I need to keep both hands on the flying devices because I'm not real good in DCS. I'm not sure if you've seen.
Oh, I've seen.
Hmm.
All right, Gonky. We somehow managed to make this 2 hours and 26 minutes with no wombat.
Dude, do not. He may accept that challenge. You may have. Yeah. Nah, just kidding. I love Wombat.
Yeah. Wombat is an awesome American. That's it, man.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. It's, yeah, we made another one. Episode 36 is in the books.
Yeah. I can't wait for the comments like, hey, this one wasn't as good as usual. Did you see that one? Yeah, the people are like, you did not your best work, guys.
Yeah. You know what? I take full accountability for that.
No,
Mover and I have been working literally.
I would say our best work is behind us. Jake says, here's $10, Gonky.
Oh, thanks, Jake.
Yeah. I would say
we worked all weekend, man, doing real work.
Yeah. I mean, plus the beard's gone. It's going to take me a whole month to get it back to where it was last time.
Yeah.
But then I'm going to have to, actually, I might have a 2-month beard because I'm
you driving
going
race
to
cars?
Daytona. Yeah. So I'll be driving race cars.
I'm going to have to disapprove that.
I'm going to have the Duck Dynasty beard by the end of the, it's going to be, yep. It's going to be great.
I'm going to borrow your office.
Douglas, anything? Thanks as always.
I have nothing further.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
See ya.